Chapter 567. The Two Shocked Girls 1. Water has a temperature limit, but the temperature will rise when oil is added. Everything melts in the form of water. The art of water refining has great demand for strength and energy. Wang Xian looked at the melting Bo-Yu sword as he revealed a smile. The usual blacksmith master with art of water refining would require an immense amount of energy to melt Bo-Yu sword slowly. This could probably take up to an hour or two. Even so, many water refining blacksmith masters required spiritual objects like a spiritual liquid ball to support the work. But not Wang Xian. His origin source of water and the system worked like plug-ins. Bo-Yu sword is as light as a feather that slices with sharpness. However, there's a drawback to its hardness. If the hardness of the sword can be enhanced, this sword will become a level 12 spiritual sword. Wang Xian pondered to himself with a relaxed expression. Given his current strength, it was an easy job for him to refine a level 11 weapon using art of water refining. Dismantle. Melt. Combine. Wang Xian went according to the tip of the art of water refining and began the repair. Art of water refining had a significant disadvantage as it could only solidify melted metal once. That is to say, the performance of the metal might be reduced if it is repeatedly dissolved and refined. Based on this characteristic, the success rate of art of water refining was far lower than the art of inferno refining. However, this did not pose a problem to Wang Xian either. This was because the origin source water was able to keep the metal properties despite repeatedly dissolving it. Just like how he'd done while refining the elixir pills, the origin source flame could ensure that the effectiveness of the pills remained. Wang Xian did not know if this was because of the system or the origin source water. In any case, it was sick. Done. Within 5 minutes, the Bo-Yu sword was completely fixed. Wang Xian exhibited a smile and looked at the remaining materials. The remaining material was of a palm size and weighed about 1 kilogram or so. Obviously, it was not enough to refine another short sword. Since that girl is rich, why don't I? Radiance flickered in Wang Xian's eyes as he smiled while looking at the remaining material. I can make some thin weapons like hidden weapons. That would make this a real Bo-Yu sword. Wang Xian looked at the hilt. The hilt was not made of bingy metal, but lardite stones that were level 11 material, and it was smaller than the average hilts. Wang Xian looked at the hilt and drew his lips slightly. Immediately, he dug out 6 layers on the hilt with art of water refining. Every layer was so thin that it could only fit a piece of paper. Wang Xian took out the remaining bingy metal and began to forge Bo-Yu swords. However, the 6 Bo-Yu swords did not have any hilts and were over 10 times smaller than the girl's Bo-Yu sword. Each one of them was only the size of 2 fingers, yet the sharpness and grade were not any lower than the original Bo-Yu. Soon, the 6 mini, hiltless Bo-Yu swords appeared in the hands of Wang Xian. Next, I'll make it a set, and the mini Bo-Yu swords can return to the sword when triggered. In the records of art of water refining, not only did a suit have a low-grade connection of energy like the devil wings and devil shadow masks made by Wang Xian, but also a spiritual connection. Spirituality could be understood as the magnetic field in modern terms. This is the principle of magnetic attraction. Art of water refining called it the spiritual complement, which was more troublesome. It looks like it will take another 10 minutes. Wang Xian pondered, but he was not bothered by it as he continued with his craft. 10 minutes is up. Why isn't that guy coming down? At this time, the young girl looked at the timer on her wrist and remarked impatiently downstairs. The girl furrowed her brows slightly. It's been 10 minutes already. Obviously, he can't fix Bo-Yu. If he can't fix it, why did he say 10 minutes? Is he playing games with us? The more I see this shop, the more I feel it's unreliable. The young girl scanned around and noticed that there were no valuable items around. Suspiciously, she speculated, Sister Shui, do you think this shop is a scam? Even though your bow is damaged, its value is still quite high. The girl's eyebrows locked even more tightly upon hearing the young girl's comments. With a flash of blue radiance, she immediately went upstairs to check it out. "He's still here," said the girl with relief. "This is odd. Why would a master stay in such a run-down shop?" The young girl pouted as she complained. However, what the young girl had just said stunned her. Slowly, her expression darkened. She immediately went upstairs again with flickering blue radiance on her body. There was only one person around. She was certain about it. Be it the second or the third story, there was only one young man around. The expression on the girl's face gradually turned awful. "What's wrong, Sister Shui?" Sensing something wrong with her, the young girl quickly asked her this. "There's only a young man in the entire shop and no one else," the girl replied with a sullen face. "Her? What do you mean?" The girl was confused, but subsequently she jumped. "Sister Shui, are you saying that there's only a lad over here and no other masters around?" "Yes, I don't sense the presence of other people. Unless," the girl darkened her expression with flickering radiance in her eyes, "unless he's the blacksmith master." "He's a blacksmith master? How is this possible? How old is he?" All the masters have to be deeply involved in the field of blacksmith and alchemy for decades and centuries. Even the most talented alchemy master, O Zimming, could only forge level 10 spiritual weapons at the age of 40. The young girl spoke at the top of her lungs. Alchemy and blacksmith were not easy subjects to master. It was way more complicated than cultivation. As the most skilled sect among the 3 immortal sects, the most outstanding blacksmith of Yongchang Immortal Sect could only forge level 10 spiritual weapons at age 40. Even so, he was known to be the future blacksmith master, the blacksmith genius of Yongchang Immortal Sect of the last 1,000 years. It was possible for him to reach the realm of a Grand Master too. But how old was that lad? He might just be over his 20s. This is an unscrupulous shop. It must be. The young girl was furious. On her little face, her long lashes were fluttering in anger. Clang! She drew out an exquisite belt sword immediately. "Sister Shui, let's go. We'll go up and teach this unscrupulous owner a lesson. How dare he cheat us? Doesn't he know our names in Yongchang City?" The girl showed some hesitation before she nodded her head slowly. Bo Yu sword was a sword she had been carrying around since she started her cultivation. It was extremely important to her. She did not think that the lad in the shop who was in his 20s could be a blacksmith master. Chapter 568. The 2 Shocked Girls 2. "Scammer up there, you better get down here right away." The young girl with ponytails held her belt sword and resembled a furious kitten. While walking up furiously, she shouted, "Huh!" Wang Xian retrieved the last Bo Yu sword from it and revealed a satisfied expression. In the end, he heard the shouts of the young girl with ponytails right away. Wang Xian raised an eyebrow. "There's nothing up here in this wretched place. Where's the blacksmith master?" At this moment, the young girl with ponytails appeared on the second floor. She walked into the room where Wang Xian was while observing the surroundings. Other than 2 tables and 2 benches, there was nothing else on the second floor. "Hey, scammer, what tricks are you up to?" The young girl with ponytails held her sword at Wang Xian as she demanded, "Where's Sister Shui's Bo Yu sword?" Behind the young girl with ponytails, the other girl was clearly unhappy when she saw the short sword in Wang Xian's hands was still kept within the scabbard. "You are here at the right time. It's done." Wang Xian wasn't bothered by the young girl's fury as he threw the Bo Yu sword to the other girl. "It's done." The other girl was doubtful as she caught her short sword. Swish! A crisp sound reverberated as the short sword was drawn from the scabbard. "Huh! Huh!" 2 exclamations broke out as the girls looked at the Bo Yu sword. Swish! As she swung her arms around lightly, snowflake-like miniature bow, Yu swords appeared on the main bow yu sword. It's restored. Oh my God, it's really restored. The other girl beamed with excitement as she moved her hands over the previously broken spot with disbelief. Sister Shwethis, is it really fixed? The young girl with ponytails by the side was astonished as she stared blankly at the bow yu sword in the other girl's hands. It's indeed bow yu sword. Moreover, there's no difference from the one I'd been using previously. The other girl was agitated. She moved her palm slightly and controlled bow yu sword to rotate it above her palm. Snowflake-like miniature bow yu swords appeared, making it extremely captivating. Something isn't right with the sword hilt? At this moment, the other girl felt something amiss with her bow yu sword. She grabbed onto the hilt of the sword right away as she examined the hilt immediately. Doubt flashed in her eyes. Did he do something to it? As I said, he's definitely up to something. This is a scam. A scam. The young girl with ponytails rumbled on instantly and stared harshly at Wang Xian. Bow yu sword has indeed been restored. Wang Xian faced the young girl with ponytails and continued. As for the sword hilt, there are 6 layers in it, which I can restore any time you wish. I was wondering if this lady here is interested in purchasing some weapons. As he spoke, his gaze shifted to the other girl. Bow yu sword has indeed been restored. As for the sword hilt, it's not a huge matter. It's just... The other girl lifted her head and looked at Wang Xian with shock and doubt. What are you trying to sell me? Give me the sword. Wang Xian extended his hands towards the girl as he spoke. The girl didn't hesitate at all and handed bow yu sword to Wang Xian. Wang Xian shifted his palm and the 6 miniature bow yu swords, roughly the size of 2 fingers, shot into the sword's hilt. He held bow yu sword in his hand before swinging it. Wang. The bow yu sword was triggered and 6 miniature bow yu swords shot ahead. The next moment, they rotated and returned to the bow yu sword. The entire process lasted for only seconds. Wang Xian held the bow yu sword upright and manipulated the 6 miniature bow yu swords to circle around the main sword. I have used the remaining materials to forge 6 level 11 miniature bow yu swords. These miniature bow yu swords can form a set with the main sword. In battle, you could have more variations in attacks. Wang Xian explained. The next moment, he flicked the 6 miniature bow yu swords away. Wang. Just as the miniature bow yu swords fell on the ground, the main bow yu sword dazzled in blue light. The next moment, the 6 miniature swords returned to the main sword. I wonder if this lady is interested in purchasing these 6 miniature swords. Wang Xian looked at the girl and spoke with a smile. This. At this moment, the girl was dumbfounded. Her eyes were fixed on the miniature swords circling around the main bow yu sword. Astonishment was written all over her face. This, you. She was incoherent. She knew clearly after using the bow yu sword for over 20 years. Now that there were 6 additional miniature bow yu swords, just the attacking aspect would be several times stronger. Moreover, these 6 miniature swords were all level 11 spiritual equipment. Level 11 spiritual equipment. Although weapons used for sneak attacks were relatively cheaper, that was only a relative concept. Level 11 spiritual equipment was still level 11 spiritual equipment. The most crucial point was Wang Xian had made the 6 miniature bow yu swords to be a set with the main bow yu sword. Naturally, she knew how incredibly strong set weapons were. An entire set of weapons could greatly enhance one's strength. Although the 6 miniature swords were different from the typical armor-type equipment, they could still greatly enhance her attacking potency. These were all created by you. When the girl spoke, she immediately realized how dumb her question was. There was no one else other than him in the entire shop. Just a while ago, they were still doubting if this was all just a scam. This young man is a blacksmith master. Moreover, he's a great blacksmith master. Astonishment flashed across the eyes of the girl. She had seen many geniuses and supreme talents in Yongchang world. In fact, she was widely regarded as one of them. Yet, she was still deeply shocked to see such a young blacksmith master. How long had it been? Just over 10 minutes. In this period, he had restored her spiritual sword. This was something that the famous master Xuanhua couldn't even restore. What was the most insane was that he had even forged 6 other miniature swords to make them into a set. This incredible refining technique was comparable to the work of God. What do you think? Upon hearing that girl, Wang Xian smiled and responded, "What? You really are a blacksmith master?" The young girl with ponytails widened her eyes as she stared with disbelief at Wang Xian. A young man like him is a blacksmith master. This isn't a scam. Instead, this was a shop opened by an insanely incredible blacksmith master. Would this lady like to purchase these 6 miniature swords? Sensing the fervent looks on the girl, Wang Xian asked once again with a smile. Yes, quote me a price. Just as he finished his question, the girl answered resolutely. The value of a set of weapons isn't comparable to ordinary spiritual equipment after all. However, you are my first customer. I'll charge you the market rate for each miniature sword. Wang Xian replied to the girl directly. Market price? All right. The girl nodded her head without a moment of hesitation. Purchasing these swords at the market price was definitely a great deal. Level 11 equipment used for ambushing is roughly 5,000 spiritual stones each. Since there are 6, it will be 30,000 spiritual stones. As Wang Xian spoke, excitement beamed in his eyes. Chapter 569, Demon-like Master 1. 30,000 spiritual stones for just any business that dropped by. If the shop had such good businesses in the future, he could earn even more spiritual stones. Perhaps 100,000 a day. In that way, upgrading the Dragon Palace would be a piece of cake, not to mention enhancing his own strength. A tinge of excitement flashed in Wang Xian's eyes as he stared at the girl in front of him with a beaming face. 30,000 spiritual stones. The girl paused as 30,000 was a hefty amount. However, she was determined to get the 6 miniature Boyu swords. What is it? Can't you afford it? Wang Xian frowned slightly and asked her. This is way too expensive. 30,000 spiritual stones. Who could take them out in one shot? Besides, the material you used for making these miniature swords were from Sister Shui. You're way too cunning. At most, we'll offer 10,000 spiritual stones. Upon hearing the price that Wang Xian quoted, the young girl immediately resented him. Taking out 30,000 spiritual stones in one shot was really difficult for them. After all, they were consumables, which most people use to buy weapons and elixir pills for enhancing their strength. There's another way. You can use materials that are equivalent in value to exchange for it. Regardless of whether they're refining materials or spiritual grass, they are fine. Wang Xian proposed this to them. Exchanging it with materials would be better. Compared to giving him the spiritual stones, Wang Xian was more inclined to receive materials. Give me some preparation time, said the girl as she nodded slightly toward Wang Xian. Sure. Wang Xian nodded. With a swing, he took the 6 miniatures Boyu swords back and stretched out his arm. Pay me the spiritual stones for the restoration of the Boyu sword first. The girl was slightly taken aback, while the other young girl was staring at Wang Xian with a startled look. Phew! The girl took a deep breath as she handed Wang Xian the spiritual stones which she had been prepared for. She looked at him and said, I'm Piao Lingxue. You can be assured that I won't owe you any money. I'm running a small business, no credit allowed, said Wang Xian with a smile. As Wang Xian received the spiritual stones, he was surprised to hear her name. Piao Lingxue, the number 2 on the Young Supreme Talents ranking of Dahong Immortal Sect. Her strength had reached the budding realm. Yet This lady looked to be at most 30 years old. She looked like one favored by the gods. "Hey, you!" Sister Shue already said she won't owe you any spiritual stones. She means it. What's wrong with you? The young girl pointed at Wang Xian with discontent and said, "Isn't the name of my sister worth 30,000 spiritual stones?" Wang Xian chuckled. "My business is not good, so I don't take credit. How can the business of a blacksmith master be bad?" Piao Lingxue commented with indignation. She, Piao Lingxue, was one of the top-notch talented girls in Yongchang World. In other places, the name Piao Lingxue could be worth over 10,000 spiritual stones, or even more than that if she ever wanted to take on credit. Yet, this young man totally disregarded it. It's bad. You guys can see it with your own eyes. As such, come and collect your 6 miniature swords whenever you have the spiritual stones. Wang Xian shook his head at her. Then the young girl rolled her eyes and said, "If we refer some business to you, can we get a discount on the spiritual stones?" "Oh, refer some business?" Wang Xian was taken by surprise. He immediately replied, "Sure, if the business value is relatively high, I can give you a discount of thousands or up to 10,000 spiritual stones." "Great, I have your word on it." The young girl squinted her eyes, revealing a lovely dimple. She tugged Piao Lingxue by the arm. "Don't you eavesdrop. We'll go down now." The young girl pointed at Wang Xian and grabbed Piao Lingxue's arm. She whispered, "Sister Shue, we can refer disciples in our mountain sect to him, since this cheapskate fellow is a blacksmith master. It's not easy to find one. Besides, this silly fellow doesn't have any business. If we bring out his reputation, the girls in the sects will readily agree to it. They are probably wishing for this." Upon hearing how the young girl addressed Wang Xian, Piao Lingxue smiled with flickering radiance in her eyes. Indeed, average disciples are not qualified to get a blacksmith master to forge their spiritual weapons. There was a cunning look in Piao Lingxue's eyes. She did not know why this blacksmith master was in such a miserable state, but this was beneficial to her. "Master!" Piao Lingxue called out to the second floor as she craned her head. "What is it?" Wang Xian walked down from the second floor and looked at them. "I'll go back to gather the spiritual stones and refer you some customers." "What is your closing time?" asked Piao Lingxue to Wang Xian. "I'll always be here," said Wang Xian to the 2 girls. "Great, we'll be right back." Piao Lingxue nodded as she headed outside with the young girl. "Refer me more customers for refining elixir pills, too. I'll give you more of a discount." Wang Xian's voice came from behind. Piao Lingxue paused for a while with a cold face. To think that she was the most talented girl of Mt. Shui Immortal Sect. Now she became someone who needed to rely on such a method for some spiritual stones discount. Her face was blushing slightly as she felt embarrassed. "You said it. Wait for us." The young girl, on the other hand, was very excited. "Sister Shue, let's gather all the disciples who need to forge their weapons and refine elixir pills. And then, hayak, let's just take the 6 miniature swords for free." The young girl clenched her fists with an excited look. She spoke with a resolution. "I want this cheapskate fellow to vomit blood." Customers for elixir pills? Don't tell me this guy knows alchemy too? Could he be an alchemist master? No, that couldn't be possible. After Piao Lingxue calmed down, she recalled what Wang Xian had said. Unlike the young girl, she was not silly or naive. However, it was hard for her to believe that he was a master of alchemy too. To become a blacksmith master for a guy in his 20s was already sick enough. How could he be an alchemy master too? Forget it, we'll find out in due time. Piao Lingxue's eyes gleamed as she looked at her boyu in her hand. She was in a chirpy mood as she headed to Mt. Shui with the young girl on their swords. Mt. Shui, the mountain sect in second placing among the Hong Immortal Sect, was a unique sect as all their disciples were female. Mt. Shui never took in male disciples. As the number 2 mountain sect among the Hong immortal sects, the disciples were incomparable with those from Mt. Fingyu. There were over 200 female disciples. No one dared to provoke any girls from Mt. Shui in the entire Dahong immortal sects, or even in the Yongchang world. Not only because the leader, Piao Lingxue, was strong, but also because they had many admirers. Mt. Shui was 4 or 5 times larger than Mt. Fingyu. In the evening, the entire Mt. Shui was unusually lively. Disciples of other mountain sects, such as Immortal Slang Sect and Yongchang Immortal Sect, were all present. Chapter 570, Demon-like Master 2. The entire Mt. Shui was the liveliest place in Dahong Immortal Sect. Countless female disciples were cultivating and practicing on the training field. There were also disciples from other mountain sections. Some of them were even graciously guiding the female disciples. Mt. Shui was able to rank second among mountain sects because they had the true strength to support their ranking instead of relying on the privileges of female disciples. One could easily tell from the strength of Piao Lingxue. Wanbai informed Bailing, Beibei, and the rest. Ask them to gather those disciples who are interested. I'll be bringing all my spiritual stones here first. When the 2 girls arrived at Mt. Shui, Piao Lingxue spoke to the young girl Wanbai. All right, Sister Shui, I'll look for Sister Bailing and Sister Beibei while you go get your spiritual stones. Wanbai smiled and nodded her head. The next instant, she took off on her sword towards the peak of Mt. Shui before shouting down, "Hey sisters, did anyone see Sister Bailing and Sister Beibei?" Junior Sister Wanbai. Junior Sister Wanbai. When the crowd heard Wanbai's voice, they lifted their heads with smiles. Several young men from other sects also greeted her with smiles. Mu Wanbai was from the Mu family, other than the immortals in Yongchang world. Her family was ranked in the top 5. Moreover, the dorky Mu Wanbai was really adorable. Senior Sister Bailing and Senior Sister Beibei are at that mountain peak. Some really handsome guys from Yongchang Immortal Sect are here looking for them. A female disciple shouted in response to Mu Wanbai. There are dogs trying to woo them. Mu Wanbai mumbled to herself before she left on her sword. Dogs. Upon hearing Mu Wanbai, the disciples from various mountain sects could feel the edges of their mouths twitching uncontrollably. Sister Bailing, Sister Beibei. Mu Wanbai flew to the other mountain peak. She saw 7 to 8 sisters from the mountain sect and 3 young men wearing outfits from Yongchang Immortal Sect. Wanbai. When the group saw Mu Wanbai, they smiled and asked, "Where's great senior sister?" She went to get some stuff from her room, and she will be here right away. Mu Wanbai descended on the peak and stole a few glances at the disciples from Yongchang Immortal Sect while speaking. Sister Bailing, Sister Beibei, come, follow Sister Shui and I to Yongchang City in a while. That, Sister Bei, aren't you thinking of refining spiritual equipment? Get the materials required ready. What's the matter, Wanbai? The girl who was addressed as Beibei looked at Mu Wanbai curiously. It's a grave matter. Where should I start? Mu Wanbai tilted her head and said, Sister Shui and I will be bringing you to a cheapskate master. Let's see if any other senior or junior sisters require refining of elixir pills or equipment. Master? What master? Several female disciples around Beibei were taken aback. Even those young disciples from Yongchang Immortal Sect were curious. A blacksmith master. If we introduce business to him, he will reduce the fees for Sister Shui to purchase her spiritual swords. Mu Wanbai said, Blacksmith master? Introduce business? The crowd was taken aback. Blacksmith master? Introduce business? That felt a little strange. Would a blacksmith master require others to introduce business to him? Yep. Mu Wanbai nodded her head and continued, He's a cheapskate blacksmith master. Sister Shui will be here soon. Get all the other senior sisters and junior sisters. Gather all those who want to refine equipment and elixir pills over. Junior sister Muwanbai, are you sure he's a blacksmith master? The reason why we are here today is because we have convinced senior brother O Zimming. He has agreed to help refine spiritual equipment for disciples of MT Shui. As for refining elixir pills, you can leave it to senior brother Yi Feng. At this moment, several young men from Yongchang Immortal Sect frowned and explained to Muwanbai. Wanbai, senior brother Yi Feng has agreed to refine elixir pills for the disciples of our MT Shui. This is a valuable opportunity. Bailing pulled Muwanbai aside, looked at one of the young men, and spoke to her. Huh? Senior brother Yi Feng? Senior brother O Zimming? Muwanbai was taken aback as she looked at the prideful group of young men. The young man lifted his head slightly. He was wearing exquisite red armor which emitted dense fire energy. Despite facing everyone, he still looked as proud as a peacock. Senior brother Yi Feng! Muwanbai exclaimed. Yi Feng was a descendant of an immortal in Yongchang Immortal Sect. Although he was the 10th generation, he was still a descendant of an immortal. At the same time, Yi Feng was known for his incredible alchemy skills. He could refine level 5 elixir pills. His reputation could even match O Zimming. And he was only in his 30s. Yeah. Yi Feng nodded his head plainly at Muwanbai, still looking as prideful as ever. Sister Bailing, senior brother, Yi Feng has just been able to refine level 5 elixir pills. Level 5 elixir pills are only effective for inborn level disciples. For Dan Realm disciples, only level 6 elixir pills would be useful. Muwanbai said to the two tall girls by her side, Senior brother Yi Feng will be able to borrow the Wan Pill Cauldron from his family for the next month. His success rate for level 5 elixir pills will be 40%. Moreover, he has a certain chance of successfully refining level 6 elixir pills with the effects of the Wan Pill Cauldron. A young man from Yongchang Immortal Sect added with a smile. Wan Pill Cauldron. Muwanbai gasped. That was a level 13 alchemy furnace used by immortals. When used for refining elixir pills, the success rate would be greatly enhanced. However, Muwanbai turned around and said, Sister Bei, Sister Bailing, that guy in Yongchang City is really incredible. Sister Shui's Bo Yu was restored by him. Moreover, he used the remaining materials to forge 6 level 11 hidden weapon type spiritual weapons. Sister Shui couldn't afford them. However, that guy said he could reduce the price a little if Sister Shui introduces customers to him. That guy restored great senior sister's Bo Yu sword. Upon hearing her, Bei and Bailing were astonished. They also knew great senior sister's Bo Yu sword was chipped. It was exceptionally difficult to restore. They were shocked that the guy was able to restore it and curious about the identity of that guy. Yeah, he's an extreme cheapskate. Muwanbai nodded her head and continued. However, that guy is really incredible. He is a blacksmith master despite being just in his 20s. A blacksmith master in his 20s? That's not possible. Before Muwanbai could finish her words, senior brother Yi Feng interrupted with a definitive tone. Yeah, it's impossible to become a blacksmith master in one's 20s. How can there be such a young blacksmith master? Our senior brother O Zimming is already regarded as a 1 in 1,000 years blacksmith genius for being able to refine inborn spiritual equipment. How can there be a blacksmith master in his 20s? It wasn't just the few disciples from Yongchang Immortal Sect who snorted. Even Bei, Bailing, and other female disciples of MT Shui couldn't believe it as they shook their heads. Although I don't believe he's a blacksmith master either, the truth is the truth. Sister Shui's Bo Yu sword was indeed restored by him. Seeing that the group didn't believe her, Muwanbai pouted and added this remark. Are you sure? A blacksmith master in his 20s? Putting aside Yongchang world, There's not a single person who became a blacksmith master at this age. Senior brother, Yi Feng, snorted with indignance. Chapter 571, Demon-like Master 3. One could only be called a master if they topped the world in any domain. The female disciples of Mt. Shui would not believe that someone in his 20s had become a blacksmith master, let alone those few Yongchang youths. I'm saying the truth. Sister Shui's Bo Yu is fixed there. If you don't believe me, you can ask her when she gets here. Mu Wanbai argued in fury as some did not believe her. It's not that we don't believe you, but who would ever believe a blacksmith master of such a young age? Bei Ling and Bei Bei said as they quickly tugged Mu Wanbai's arm. Humph, you will know it when you're there. I didn't believe that lad is a blacksmith master either, but it is true. Feeling bitter, Mu Wanbai did not bother to explain any more. All right. Bei Bei soon gave a smile. She nodded and said, We'll get our sisters to prepare the materials for equipment refining. But why do we have to bring along the spiritual grass for refining elixir pills? The shop is called Master of Alchemy and Blacksmith. He said that the more customers he has to refine elixir pills, the more the spiritual stones will be discounted. Mu Wanbai replied. Master of Alchemy and Blacksmith? That shop has a master who can refine elixir pills too? Yi Feng said with a look of irony in his eyes. Great senior sister is here. At this time, a female disciple called out. Instantly, everyone looked ahead after being stunned briefly. You can ask Sister Shui anything you want to know, said Mu Wanbai as she pouted her lips with her gaze brushing over Yi Feng. Piao Lingxue. Yi Feng and several Yongtsang youths looked in the direction where the lady was coming from with solemn expressions. She was wearing clothes that were as white as snow, her long hair spread behind her, and she had a cold expression on her face. She truly looked like a fairy. In fact, to be called a fairy was still an understatement. Being an expert of the budding realm in her 30s, almost no other femme was comparable to her in the entire Yongchang world. Even Yi Feng had to put his arrogance away upon seeing Piao Lingxue. She was a true blue expert, after all, an expert who had the potential to become an immortal. Great senior sister. Senior Piao Lingxue. All Mt. Shui disciples immediately greeted Piao Lingxue with cupped fists. The youths of the Yongchang immortal sect cupped their fists as well. Piao Lingxue responded with a nod. Wanbai, I suppose you have told everyone about it. Great senior sister, is that blacksmith master really in his 20s? Bei Ling could not hold herself back from asking Piao Lingxue. Indeed, it is quite unimaginable. Piao Lingxue nodded with her arms, slightly shaken. Her Bo Yu sword unsheathed itself and was suspended before her eyes. He fixed my spiritual sword and used the bingy metal to construct 6 subsidiary swords. I must get my hands on those swords. So it's true. Astonishment could be seen on the faces of every disciple, including Bei Ling and Bei Bei. If this came from the great senior sister herself, it should be true then. Sister Bei Ling, Sister Bei Bei, why would I lie to you? Mu Wanbai said in a snorting manner. There's really a master in his 20s. Yi Feng frowned and asked with doubts. You'll see for yourself when you get there. Piao Lingxue did not explain further and said, It is a fortune for all disciples of Mt. Shui to have a blacksmith master to refine our weapons. Please check and see if any other disciple would like to go. One more thing. Piao Lingxue said with a frown. Please ask around if there is any disciple who needs to refine their elixir pills and get them to prepare all necessary materials. Yes, great senior sister, we shall go and ask around now. Bei Ling, Bei Bei, and the other female disciples nodded and headed off. At Mt. Shui, the position of a great senior sister was comparable to a mentor. The abilities of the two were almost on par with each other. While some female disciples went around alerting the others, the Yongchang youths were slightly embarrassed. In particular, Yi Feng, who held a gloomy look on his face. Their aim was to befriend MT Shui. It took them great effort to persuade Senior O Zimming, and on top of that, Yi Feng had a crush on Bei Ling. However, little did they expect that a so-called master would be revealed. Senior Yi Feng, what should we do? We shall tag along and meet this master. Yi Feng answered with no hesitation after one of the youths of the Yongchang Immortal sect posed a question. Even if such a blacksmith master does exist, I am not convinced that he's an alchemist. He raised his head slightly, showing intense self-confidence on his face. Yi Feng, fear no one. Not a single alchemy master in the entire Yongchang is unknown to me. That's right. There's no one in the entire Yongchang world able to compare themselves to our senior when it comes to alchemy, said several Youthchang youths with smiles on their faces. Great senior sister, all sisters are ready. They became excited upon hearing about the existence of a master of alchemy and blacksmithing. Bei Ling and Bei spoke with smiles on their faces. Within 20 minutes, they had reported back to Piao Ling Xue. Initially, the disciples of MT Shui were already delighted to spend time with those youths from Yongchang. But it did not cross their minds that the great senior sister would be taking them on a trip to meet a master. An ordinary disciple would have to pay a huge price to refine spiritual equipment from a master. These female disciples were not qualified to do such a thing. All right, let's go. Upon seeing a group of 50 to 60 female disciples with materials in their hands, Piao Ling Xue smiled and rode on her sword. She flew towards the direction of the Yongchang city. The other disciples followed behind her. However, it was not just those 60 people who followed behind, but rather around 80 people. Amongst them were other MT Shui disciples who were just curious and youths of other sects who just wished to tag along. It was already nightfall when Piao Ling Xue left Wang Xian's shop. Adding up all the traveling time and delays, it was already approximately 7 p.m. With the sky turned dark, it did not attract much attention as the disciples flew towards Yongchang City. It took them just 20 minutes to reach the vicinity of the city. Senior Piao Ling Xue, where's that master shop? I really want to see what a master in his 20s looks like. Yi Feng asked Piao Ling Xue, his eyes shining as everyone landed in the city. That's right, where is the master? We heard that he's a super young master. The group of disciples chatted with fervor, which added glow to the streets. Let's move. Piao Ling Xue led them to Wang Xian's shop. When they reached the shop, they saw Wang Xian sitting inside. Piao Ling Xue responded impassively, "This is the one." What? Great senior sister, you mean this small shop is the one? Everyone was dumbfounded by what they saw. Chapter 572. Unparalleled in Refining Elixir Pills and Equipment 1. All the female disciples from MT Shui were stunned. Those few other young disciples from Yongchang Immortal Sect were equally shocked as they stared at the shop before them in astonishment. A small shop. Moreover, it was among the smallest shops in the vicinity. Within the shop, the walls were empty without any dazzling spiritual equipment. There wasn't any aroma of elixir pills either. The entire shop was at most 20 to 30 square meters. This is the shop of a master. A master would stay in a shop like this. The group was completely dumbfounded. Senior Sister Piao Ling Xue, are you sure this is the shop of that master? Would a master stay in a shop like this? A young disciple from Yongchang Immortal Sect found this hilarious and commented. Behind them, the group of disciples from MT Shui looked at the small shop baffled. There seems to be a young man in it. Could it be that the young man is the blacksmith master? Why do I find this to be unbelievable? Take a look at the signboard on the doors of the shop. Alchemist master and blacksmith master. How reassuring. The group broke into discussions after seeing the small shop. This is obviously a front for scams. Girls, don't be scammed by them. A middle-aged man passing by reminded them out of good will after seeing the group of beautiful girls and hearing their conversation. When the group heard the middle-aged man, they nodded their heads instinctively. The shop is obviously a front for scams. Let's go in. Piao Lingxue took a deep breath, seeing the small shop once again. She found herself to be a little ridiculous too. Why did I even decide to go in previously? However, she was lucky to have gone in. Otherwise, she would have missed out on a great blacksmith master. Let's go. Seeing their grand senior sister walking in without further explanation, the group of disciples from MT Shui entered out of curiosity despite feeling a little weird. I would like to see what kind of master would be in a shop like this. When Yi Feng saw the entire small shop, the edge of his mouth inclined upwards as he walked in. It's a shame that the shop was a little too small. After a dozen odd people had gone in, it became a little crowded. This caused the group of disciples from MT Shui to feel a little speechless. Every single shop nearing the center of Yongchang City was huge. For large elixir pill shops and weapon shops, customers wouldn't feel squeezed even if there were 100 customers in them. At this moment, Wang Xian saw the group stepping into his shop. Seeing Piao Lingxue and that little brat at the front of the pack, his eyes beamed with excitement. You girls are back. Wang Xian stood up with a smile. He looked around and commented, It seems like Ms. Piao has brought me quite a number of customers. Wang Xian smiled radiantly. From this group of people, he could pick up the smell of metal and spiritual medicine. You are the blacksmith master. Yi Feng squinted his eyes, scrutinized Wang Xian from head to bottom, and asked plainly, You are interested in refining equipment. Wang Xian looked at Yi Feng and asked directly, Refine equipment? Yi Feng shook his head and answered plainly, I saw your signboard saying that there is a blacksmith master and alchemist master. I would like to meet both masters. Oh, the shop is small. If you wish to see them, perhaps you can come again when you are here to refine equipment or elixir pills. If you aren't, please get out and let the real customers in. Seeing Yi Feng putting up a haughty front, Wang Xian remarked emotionlessly, You! Yi Feng was stunned, and his face became flushed from embarrassment instantly. These are the customers we have brought you. What do you think? Can you lower the price you charge for refining equipment a little? Upon seeing Wang Xian embarrassing Yi Feng, Piao Lingxue interrupted and stopped their conversation. She knew that Wang Xian would only give her back her swords after she paid up despite her telling him her name. The temper of the master was undoubtedly bad. What's the price St. Forge Workshop is charging for level 10 spiritual equipment and a level 5 elixir pill? Wang Xian asked the group directly. 2 sets of materials for the equipment with 100 spiritual stones for workmanship. As for pills, it would be 3 sets of materials for 3 elixir pills. These are the prices of St. Forge Workshop. All the other forge workshops and elixir pill shops in the entire Yongchang City also charge around these prices. Although you are a master, I hope you won't charge prices that deviate greatly from these prices. Piao Lingxue said to Wang Xian, For the refining of spiritual equipment, I'm not charging for workmanship. As for elixir pills, I'll give you guys 4 pills. Wang Xian replied directly, What? You are not charging for workmanship? Piao Lingxue was taken aback and astonished. Yeah, pass me the materials and tell me what kind of weapon you would like. Wang Xian said to the group behind Piao Lingxue, Not charging for workmanship? Are there really such great deals in this world? Really? Behind Piao Lingxue, the group of female disciples from MT Shui was shocked to hear Wang Xian. Their eyes widened in shock and were fixed on Wang Xian. They were hesitant. The lower price had instead given them the feeling that this shop wouldn't be reliable. Bei Ling, pass him your materials. Seeing the disciples behind her hesitating, Piao Lingxue spoke to Bei Ling, who was standing beside her. "All right, great senior sister." When Bei Ling heard Piao Ling Xue, she handed the materials for forging the spiritual equipment to Wang Xian. Level 11, crystal metal. I would like to forge a level 11 spiritual sword. Bei Ling handed the metal to Wang Xian, but was still a little doubtful of him. What's the length, thickness, weight, and special requirements, if any? Wang Xian took the materials. The 2 sets of materials were each the size of a human head. It was definitely more than 2 sets of materials. I can even have it custom made. Bei Ling was taken aback and looked at Wang Xian in shock. Custom-made weapons. If a blacksmith master was to custom-make a weapon for a customer, the price would be hefty. This could be considered as specially crafted and would be a lot more troublesome for the blacksmith master. The fees for custom-made weapons by a blacksmith master would definitely not be lower than 1,000 spiritual stones. It isn't much more troublesome. Tell me all your requirements. Wang Xian said plainly to Bei Ling. All right, thank you. Bei Ling nodded her head, following which she told Wang Xian the most appropriate length, breadth, and weight for her sword. Wait here for 10 minutes. Wang Xian nodded his head as he headed for the second story with the materials. Grand Senior Sister, is he really a blacksmith master? 10 minutes? 10 minutes to forge level 11 spiritual equipment? When Bei Ling heard Wang Xian, she was once again shocked as she asked Piao Ling Xue blankly. Yeah, Grand Senior Sister, how could he possibly finish a piece of spiritual equipment in 10 minutes? Moreover, we are talking about level 11 spiritual equipment, which blacksmith master wouldn't take 1 to 2 days. The surrounding disciples turned to their great senior sisters and clearly couldn't believe Wang Xian. You will know in 10 minutes. If she had not witnessed him using just 10 minutes to restore her Bo Yu sword and forge 6 other miniature Bo Yu swords, she wouldn't have believed either. 10 minutes. It's impossible to forge level 11 spiritual equipment in 10 minutes. Putting aside blacksmith master, even a blacksmith grand master wouldn't be capable of that. If he really forges level 11 spiritual equipment in 10 minutes, I will eat the spiritual equipment. Yi Feng heard Wang Xian. With his understanding of refining equipment, he snorted and remarked right away. That's right. Even senior brother O Ziming requires a day to forge an inborn spiritual weapon. Even if he relied on a level 12 forging table, he would still require several hours. How could he possibly forge level 11 spiritual equipment in 10 minutes? Senior Sister Piao Ling Xue, is this a scam? Another disciple beside Yi Feng also commented with indignance. Chapter 573. Unparalleled in refining elixir pills and equipment, too. The crowd of female disciples from MT Shui were utterly bewildered upon hearing the words from the 2 disciples of Yongchang Immortal Sect. In fact, they would have just lashed out saying that this was an errant shop had it not been for their great senior sister. But even then, the disciples began to talk amongst themselves, with some even wanting out. Just give it another 10 minutes, and you'll see. Piao Ling Xue chided, which shushed the crowd of MT Shui disciples immediately. After all, Piao Ling Xue remained a highly prestigious figureback at MT Shui. I wonder if he'll actually chomp the sword down. Should we really refine a piece of spiritual equipment by waiting for just another 10 minutes? Mu Wanbai uttered in a hushed tone. She had lost all good impressions of this senior brother, Yi Feng, during their interaction within an hour. Hee, junior sister Wanbai. Let's put it this way. Even if he's a deity, it's impossible for him to refine and come up with spiritual equipment of level 11 in 10 minutes. With a cold laugh, Yi Feng sneered at Mu Wanbai with certainty after hearing her comments. Then we shall wait and see. Mu Wanbai rebuked as she eyed Yi Feng. I'm more interested in this so-called blacksmith master and what tricks he has up his sleeve. Yi Feng replied. He was somewhat convinced by Piao Ling Xue, by the latter's mention of the presence of a blacksmith master where they were right now. But he was now in complete disbelief after seeing the humble shop for himself, along with the young man inside. All the more so as the young man boasted of being able to refine level 11 spiritual equipment in 10 minutes. With arms akimbo, Yi Feng stood watching nonchalantly. The atmosphere was somewhat tense right then as silence filled the crowd. 10 minutes was an extremely short period to speak of. Meanwhile, Wang Xian was located on the second floor as he looked at the remaining metal with pleasant surprise. These metals are enough to construct a long sword along with another dagger. Such a bonus! Wang Xian chirped excitedly. A piece of level 11 spiritual equipment could fetch up to 15,000 spiritual stones, given the market rates. Meaning to say, upon completion of this sword, he would then have gained 20,000 spiritual stones, which would allow him to purchase a level 6 elixir pill. A level 6 elixir pill could help Wang Xian gain more than 100,000 dragon energy. These were but the benefits from a mere business deal. Upon ascension to level 9, my future is bright. Wang Xian exclaimed with glistening eyes. Form! He commanded while eyeing the spiritual equipment in front of him. Swoosh! The long sword let out a crisp clang while Wang Xian beamed with satisfaction. Exactly 10 minutes, he chimed. Zing! With a swing of his arm, the long sword before him went flying downstairs. Zoom! A swishing sound descended from the second floor. What's that? The crowd asked in confusion as they remained standing within the shop. With the utmost vigilance, some of the disciples even braced themselves by clutching onto their long swords as they saw the flying sword approaching. As it neared, the long sword spun in a circle before it halted right in front of Bei Ling. Everyone was stunned. They stared at the long sword which hung in suspension before Bei Ling in utter astonishment. The level 11 spiritual equipment for this lady is ready. Just then, a faint call could be heard coming from the level above. It's ready? Bei Ling stuttered with a look of disbelief as she gazed intently at the long sword before her. Everyone all around focused their gaze on this long sword. The long sword shimmered. Its entire body boasted a dazzling shine and appeared incredibly sharp. Bei Ling looked on with euphoria. With a swing of her arm, she grabbed onto the sword handle. Zing! Blinding blue rays gushed up the sword as she held onto it. With a slight shift of her energy focus, it led to a series of ripples from the blue energy of the sword. Level 11 spiritual equipment. A piece of level 11 spiritual equipment indeed. Bei Ling cried out at the top of her lungs, while her eyes became fired up with rhapsody. What's more, this long sword fits my exact description, in length, width, and weight. Good sword, a good sword indeed. What? Everyone questioned with looks of disbelief upon hearing Bei Ling's words. How's this possible? How long has it been? To think a piece of level 11 spiritual equipment has since been refined and ready? Goodness, such blinding aqua rays. No doubt a level 11 spiritual equipment. A blacksmith master indeed. The crowd of disciples gushed in cries of awe and astonishment. It's only natural. Should I be deceiving you otherwise? Wang Xian smiled to the crowd as he descended from the level above. Meanwhile, Yi Feng and several youths from the Yongchang immortal sect were absolutely stunned. This, they uttered while gazing at the spiritual sword in disbelief. 10 minutes, it can't be. This is absolutely impossible. Yi Feng let out a low growl in utter skepticism. To refine and create spiritual equipment in 10 minutes was something he found to be impossible regardless of who it was. It's impossible for you guys, but that doesn't mean it's impossible for me. Wang Xian said to Yi Feng rather indifferently. Yi Feng stood dazed for a moment while staring at Wang Xian intently. He had a burning desire to rebuke the latter. Yet he had no idea how to go about with his rebuttal, given that the length, width, and weight of the long sword fit the exact descriptions set forth by Bei Ling. Could it be that he's really able to refine level 11 spiritual equipment in 10 minutes? Yi Feng muttered with a gloomy expression. He gazed at the long sword and let out a deep sigh. At the sight, Mu Wanbai was slightly tickled. See what I mean? This shop may be very miserly, but it really does house a blacksmith master. She chuckled, as if to say that she had really been honest with them. A faint grin stretched across Piao Lingshue's face. Upon the sight, Wang Xian broke into a brief smile. Should any of you still wish to refine more spiritual equipment, just pass me the materials and state your requirements, he said to the rest of the crowd. Me, I want to refine spiritual equipment. Me too. I'd like to have a sword refined as well, handsome master. In an instant, the crowd of MT Shui disciples was driven into a craze upon the sight of the level 11 spiritual equipment which Bei Ling was holding. To have a customized weapon made by a master blacksmith free of charge. Such a great deal was 1 in a million within the entire Yongchang fraternity. That's quite a few. Wang Xian gasped with a glow in his eyes when he saw the group of girls closing in with various materials in hand. But rather than the materials, Wang Xian was more interested in spiritual grasses. There are too many of you. Can you all find paper and pen and write your requirements down before passing the materials to me? In addition, is there anyone who wants to refine elixir pills? If so, that'll take 3 portions of materials. And I'll give you 4 elixir pills. Wang Xian called out to the crowd. Are you also an alchemist master, handsome master? Upon hearing Wang Xian's words, one of the girls could not help but blurt her question out. In an instant, the girl's question also caught the attention of the rest as Piao Lingxue and Mu Wanbai gazed intently at Wang Xian. Yes, Wang Xian answered without the slightest hesitation. I'm able to refine all elixir pills below level 12, and the price I offer is much more affordable than the other elixir stores, he added. TSK. The crowd gasped and took one deep breath, right after Wang Xian had finished his line. How's this possible? Are you really a wicked genius? How can one be both a master alchemist and a master blacksmith all at once? The same girl from earlier exclaimed with a shaking voice while the rest of the girls stared at Wang Xian in both shock and awe. In response, Wang Xian only smiled briefly. Perhaps an unprecedented genius who's unparalleled in refining elixir pills and equipment really does exist in this world. Chapter 574. Unparalleled in refining elixir pills and equipment 3. This cannot be possible. This definitely cannot be possible. If one said that Wang Xian was a blacksmith master and he could forge a level 11 spiritual equipment in 10 minutes, it would already be enough to make one feel a sense of disbelief. If one was to tell him that Wang Xian was also an alchemist master, he definitely wouldn't believe it. An unparalleled genius in both fields, there was probably not a single person throughout history and into the future who would be so demon-like. At this moment, Yi Feng's understanding of the world was thrown into disarray. He definitely wouldn't believe there would be a single person who was an alchemist, master, and blacksmith master at the same time. It was especially so considering that this person looked just like a young, 20-year-old man. This cannot be possible. Some blacksmiths spend their entire lives engrossed in refining equipment, and yet they find it hard to reach the realm of a blacksmith master. Some alchemists spent their entire lives refining elixir pills, and yet they can't refine level 6 spiritual pills. I don't believe it. I don't believe you are an alchemist master. Yi Feng could no longer hold back as he screamed at Wang Xian. He was an alchemist himself and was widely regarded as the most outstanding alchemist in the younger generation of the entire Yongchang world. Even so, he could barely refine level 5 elixir pills currently. Moreover, his success rate was a meager 20%. In other words, he would only succeed once with 5 sets of materials. A success rate like this wasn't high for an alchemist. However, considering his age, it was a commendable achievement. In fact, if he could use a level 13 alchemy furnace, he could still give level 6 elixir pills a shot. Level 6 elixir pills were also considered to be the benchmark of a grandmaster. Yet, this man who was even younger than him claimed to be an alchemist master. He couldn't believe him. As an alchemist, he knew the difficulties of refining elixir pills. Huh. Wang Xian raised an eyebrow, looked to Yifeng, and said, "What do you even know?" "What do I know?" Hearing Wang Xian questioning him, Yifeng's expression turned as cold as ice. He stared intensely at Wang Xian and replied in a solemn voice, "What do I know? I've been refining elixir pills since I was 10 years old. I was once guided by an immortal realm expert and can even refine level 5 elixir pills currently. You are asking me what I know. In the entire Yongchang world, if my Yi family claimed to be second in refining elixir pills, no one would dare to claim to be first. You are asking me what I know. Are you questioning my ability?" Yi Feng's lips curved into a smirk. "I can't deny you are a blacksmith master. However, if you are saying you are both a blacksmith master and alchemist master, it's impossible. I have the capital to deny your claims." Yifeng stared harshly at Wang Xian as he shouted coldly. Wang Xian looked at him with contempt. The surrounding disciples from MT Shui frowned upon hearing Yifeng's questions. They were a little doubtful. However, Wang Xian completing level 11 spiritual equipment in an insanely short period had convinced many of these disciples. They were merely suspecting and doubting, but not refuting the possibility completely. "You are questioning his identity as an alchemist master now. Didn't you say if he could forge the spiritual equipment in 10 minutes, you would eat it?" When Mu Wanbai heard Yifeng, she remarked in this way. Her irk for him had grown as she grumbled softly, "Shut up! Don't speak if you don't understand anything." Yifeng heard Mu Wanbai, turned to her instantly and shouted. When Mu Wanbai heard him shouting at her, she was shocked initially. However, this quickly turned to anger. The disciples from MT Shui were also shocked when Yifeng shouted at Mu Wanbai, "Young Master Yifeng, please watch your actions and words." Piao Lingxue looked coldly at Yifeng and reminded, a family of alchemists, a supreme talent." Wang Xian looked to a disciple from MT Shui and said, "Pass me the spiritual medicine you have prepared." Handsome master you are." The girl was surprised but still took out the spiritual medicine from her bag. There was a total of 75 spiritual medicines with 3 sets of each variety. These were the materials for refining level 5 elixir pills. To slap the face of a pile of trash, Wang Xian replied directly, "You." Yi Feng's expression was contorted from anger after hearing Wang Xian. His eyes were cold, and he didn't take the warning from Piao Lingxue to heart. "Here, handsome master." The girl handed the spiritual medicine she'd brought to Wang Xian. Channel's cleansing pill?" Wang Xian looked at the materials and asked the girl. "Yeah, level 5 elixir pill, Channel's cleansing pill." The girl nodded her head as she replied right away. Her bright eyes remained fixed on Wang Xian. Wang Xian moved his arms, and the area before him was shrouded in water energy right away. Wang Xian squinted his eyes while placing the tufts of spiritual medicine on it. Gradually they melted. Refining elixir pills on the spot. Handsome Master is going to refine elixir pills before us. Could it be that he's really an alchemist master? Handsome Master is so confident of it. He definitely is an alchemist master. He's too cool. Oh, he's so stunning. A blacksmith master that also knows about refining elixir pills. If only I could find a husband like him. When the group of female disciples saw Wang Xian starting to refine elixir pills before them, they were certain that Wang Xian was an incredible alchemist master. They looked at Wang Xian and could feel their hearts palpitating rapidly. A blacksmith master, who was quite possibly also an alchemist master. Who could possibly be a match to an unparalleled demon-like talent like him? No one. Art of water refining. Art of water refining. When Yi Feng saw that Wang Xian had started refining elixir pills before him, he had a bad premonition. Nonetheless, he still refused to believe a person could be so demon-like. What incredible and precise control! His art of water refining is really strong. Piao Lingxue saw Wang Xian starting to refine elixir pills with the art of water refining. Seeing his control over water energy, she was astonished. She was completely in awe over the extent of the control, as she was certain that she didn't possess such ability. Seeing Wang Xian refining elixir pills with the art of water refining, Yi Feng's expression was constantly changing. He specialized in the art of refining elixir pills with fire. As for the art of water refining, he wasn't adept at it. Even so, he could still see the smooth actions of Wang Xian. The spiritual medicine dissolved rapidly and was soon separated and combined. He was really fast. He's insanely fast. I once saw an alchemist refine elixir pills with the art of water refining. However, he was a lot slower than the handsome master. A girl saw Wang Xian's actions and exclaimed, "Form, form, form, form." At this moment, Wang Xian shouted softly. At the surface of the water screen, droplets of elixir pills coalesced rapidly. Following this, they cooled rapidly with the help of water energy. "Done!" Wang Xian shouted, moving his hand across, for elixir pills hovered in the air before him. He lifted his head nonchalantly, looked across the crowd, and eventually at Yi Feng. "Trash! Look, level 5 elixir pills, channels cleansing pills." Chapter 575, Space Ring. "Hey, Trash, take a look at this. Level 5 elixir pill, the channel's cleansing pill." Wang Xian's cold and disdainful voice rang in Yi Feng's ears. "Oh my God! It is the level 5 channel's cleansing pill. All 4 of them were refined in such a short time. This is simply amazing. Incredible. This handsome master is simply incredible. In just a matter of a few minutes, he was able to refine 4 level 5 elixir pills without any failures. He is so cool. Alchemy master. He is the real deal. Oh gosh, I think I have fallen in love with him. He is truly a genius blacksmith and alchemist like no other. The handsome master must be the brightest genius in the entire Yongchang world. I have just made up my mind to court him forever." At the same time, the voices of a group of infatuated and passionate MT Shui female disciples could be heard in the distance. They gawked at Wang Xian with excitement, as if they were obsessed fans of a popular idol. Yi Feng stared at the 4 elixir pills in front of him and listened to the astonished voices of the MT Shui disciples. His face turned painfully gloomy. He suddenly felt as if his world had been turned upside down. A blacksmith and alchemy master at the young tender age of his 20s. 2 master-level skills in one person. Is he even human? How is that even possible? How could he believe that this was humanly possible? He was known as the genius that was favored by the gods. But in the face of this man, he was nothing. This was a huge upset for the arrogant and haughty Yi Feng. In front of such a genius, they simply weren't in the same league. If you are not making any other requests for refining weapons or elixir pills, please leave now. My shop is too small to accommodate you. Wang Xian spoke coldly to the absent-minded Yi Feng. "You." Yi Feng stared at Wang Xian with his face twisted with anger. Yet, he also felt a sense of despair as he wrote the mixed emotions on his face. "Let's go, Senior Yi Feng. We still have unsettled business to take care of tonight." The disciples of Yongchang Immortal Sect, who had been standing aside, quickly said to the embarrassed Yi Feng. With a sullen face, Yi Feng turned and left silently. "Humph. Mu Wanbai sneered at Yi Feng's departing figure. I guess the handsome master has dealt Yi Feng such a huge blow that he lost all his senses. I think he is a narrow-minded guy putting on a high and mighty front. How dare he even scream at our sister Wanbai? Humph. Yi Feng is just feeling jealous. Compared to this handsome master here, he is simply garbage. No, I mean the handsome master is just too powerful for everyone. His ability is truly unparalleled. Both blacksmith and alchemy master in one. Do you have a girlfriend yet, handsome master? Can I be your girlfriend? I don't mind if you already have one. Shao Qing, are you sexually aroused already? Ignore her, handsome master. Choose me as your girlfriend instead. I have bigger boobs than the rest of them. After the disciples of Yongchang Immortal Sect had left, the female disciples of MT Shui started to misbehave and flirt with Wang Xian. But Wang Xian was just so outstanding that it was hard to fault these ladies for throwing themselves at him. If anyone could land themselves such a husband, it would be the pinnacle of their lives. Even Piao Lingxue, who had been standing quietly aside, was slightly moved by Wang Xian. With such good looks and incredible refining skills, there was no other man like him in the entire Yongchang. Sorry to disappoint everyone, but I do not have the intention of getting a girlfriend yet. Now, may I request that everybody please leaves their spiritual grass and refinery materials behind and make a note of your request? Do drop by tomorrow again to collect your elixir pills and spiritual equipment. Wang Xian quickly spoke to the crowd of passionate female disciples with a faint smile. I am serious, handsome master! One of the female disciples from MT Shui shouted at Wang Xian with an earnest look on her face. I am closing my shop soon. Please leave your things behind. Wang Xian laughed and shook his head. Stop your nonsense, girls. Just leave your materials and go. Piao Lingxue yelled at the group of MT Shui disciples who had lost their usual reserved demure. Okay, great senior sister. Seeing that their great senior sister had raised her voice, the female disciples of MT Shui ended their teasing of Wang Xian. One by one, they left their refinery materials and spiritual grass in front of Wang Xian. 15 requests to refine spiritual pills, among which one request for a level 6 spiritual pill. As Wang Xian watched the female disciples leaving their heaps of spiritual grass, his eyes lit up. These spiritual grasses constituted a great source of dragon energy for him. After they were done placing their spiritual grasses, the MT Shui female disciples happily bid Wang Xian goodbye. Their sweet and lovable looks were so seductive. The onlooking youths who had crowded over to watch the scene were full of envy of Wang Xian. But when they thought about how powerful Wang Xian was with his refining skills, they shook their heads helplessly. How were they even qualified to pit themselves against a competitor like this? How many spiritual stones do we owe you? Piao Lingxue asked Wang Xian gently after the disciples were done with putting down their materials. Just give me whatever spiritual stones you have with you. Wang Xian was obviously in good spirits at the sight of the spiritual grasses. He moved his arm, took out 6 small Boyu swords, and tossed them towards Piao Lingxue. Piao Lingxue was pleasantly surprised. With a swift gesture, she took out her larger Boyu sword and put the small swords into the hilt of the larger one. These are all the spiritual stones that I have. As Piao Lingxue spoke, she lifted her arm, and pieces of spiritual stones started to appear out of nowhere, dropping onto the table. Wang Xian witnessed how the spiritual stones appeared out of thin air. A sign of disbelief flashed briefly across his face, and a thought formed in his mind that made him burn with passion. Space item. Is that a space ring that you are holding? Wang Xian asked with his eyes fixed on the ring in her hand. Yes, this is a space ring indeed. Piao Lingxue nodded. Where can I buy a space ring? Or rather, where can I get a space ring? Wang Xian stared at Piao Lingxue, and asked this hastily. A space ring was a spiritual equipment that consists of storage space. It was what Wang Xian had always wanted. With it, he could enjoy the utmost convenience. He would be able to store all the spiritual equipment and elixir pills in it. Moreover, he would need to transport all the resources that he had gotten from Yongchang world to the real world. With a space item to store the resources, it would save him a lot of trouble. What a surprise to see the existence of a space ring in the Yongchang world. I must have such a treasure, Wang Xian thought while staring hard at the ring in Piao Lingshue's hand. Oh, this space ring? This is what I got as a reward for coming in second at the Dahong Immortal Sect's Outstanding Young Disciples ranking. They will also appear occasionally at auctions for bidding at a cost of roughly 30 to 50,000 spiritual stones. If you ever come across a nether space stone, you can refine one yourself as well. Piao Lingxue replied earnestly, seeing how Wang Xian treated the ring with such importance. I see. Well then, Miss Piao, if you ever come across any news on space rings or nether space stones, please kindly let me know. Wang Xian nodded to Piao Lingxue. Don't worry. I will let you know if I come across any news about them. Thanks for the Bo Yu sword, said Piao Lingxue to Wang Xian gratefully. Chapter 576, Big Business. The group left the shop and Wang Xian shuttered the doors soon after. Suddenly, the shop regained peace and silence. Looking at the materials in the room, Wang Xian's eyes beamed with excitement. 15 people have requested to refine level 5 elixir pills. That's the equivalent of 45 sets of spiritual medicine. Based on the rate of 4 elixir pills per set of spiritual medicine, I will get 180 elixir pills. Deducting the 60 elixir pills to 15 people, I will still get 120 elixir pills. One person has requested level 6 elixir pills. I'll get 8 elixir pills. Level 5 elixir pills could increase my dragon energy by roughly 10,000 points. If I have 120, it would be the equivalent of over 1,000,000 points of dragon energy. Level 6 elixir pill give more than 100,000 points of dragon energy. 8 pills would be close to 1,000,000 points of dragon energy. Together, 2,000,000 points of dragon energy won't be a problem. I can even heal my injuries completely. Wang Xian's eyes beamed with excitement. He was getting 2,000,000 points of dragon energy in a single day. If he was lucky, he could raise his level to level 9 soon. Wang Xian's lips curved into a smile as he looked towards the materials for weapons. A total of 33 sets. Among them, there were 4 sets of level 11 materials. In other words, he would be getting 4 level 11 spiritual weapons and 29 inborn level weapons. Time to start refining. Wang Xian took a deep breath. He was exhilarated as he started refining rapidly. Wang Xian was incredibly fast, and the materials were turning into elixir pills and weapons at a frenzied pace. As for the additional elixir pills, he consumed them directly to heal his injuries. After he'd finished refining all the materials into elixir pills or weapons, it was already 4 a.m. With a single thought, his attributes surfaced in his mind. Name, Wang Xian. Race, 5 elements divine dragon, able to transform into a human. Level, 8, dragon energy, 21,563 for 21/100, 000. 000. Superpower. Dominate marine animals. Ability to rule any marine animals that are lower than your own level. Devour any form of marine animals for extraction of dragon energy. 5 elements control. Art of cultivation. Divine dragon transformation. Art of fire refining. Refine all equipment with the origin source flame. Art of water refining. Refine all equipment with the origin source water. Battle techniques. Water clone, preliminary. Sword edge, preliminary. Instant shift, preliminary. I'm still missing over 70 million points of dragon energy to level up. Moreover, a new category of battle techniques has appeared. Looking at his own attributes, Wang Xian pondered them. He would need to consume more than 700 level 6 elixir pills, or over 7,000 level 5 elixir pills to gather 70 million points of dragon energy. The amount was a little too huge. However, it would take just a month for him to reach if he was getting more than 2 million points of dragon energy each day. Wang Xian revealed a smile as he went to the 3rd floor to rest. What Wang Xian wasn't aware of was that less than an hour after the 70 to 80 female disciples of MT Shui had returned to MT Shui, all the female disciples of MT Shui knew about a demon-like master who was unparalleled in refining elixir pills and equipment. Those female disciples from MT Shui were introducing Wang Xian to the rest of the disciples as though they were hardcore fans of Wang Xian. A 20-year-old handsome alchemist master and a blacksmith master at the same time. He's the most outstanding young man in Yongchang world. A demon-like master that is unparalleled in refining elixir pills and equipment, and the prince charming of all girls. The most dazzling genius in Yongchang City, and definitely the youngest, unparalleled master. They weren't stingy on the compliments of Wang Xian, making those female disciples who had not gone with them feel curious and regretful. It was especially so as this master who was unparalleled in refining elixir pills and equipment charged a lot less, regardless of whether it was equipment refining or elixir pill refining. Moreover, this master would make each piece of spiritual equipment based on your requirements. This was a deadly attraction for every single cultivator. Custom-made weapons from a blacksmith master? What price would you have to pay if you looked for another blacksmith master? However, this blacksmith master wasn't charging for workmanship. He would simply be requesting 2 sets of materials. Elixir pills? Other places offered 3 pills, while this master offered 4 pills. Never underestimate the value of a single pill. If it was a level 5 elixir pill, the value would be close to 1,000 spiritual stones. The value of a level 6 elixir pill would be even more insane. Some disciples from MT Shui started gathering what they had saved up over time to bring to Wang Xian for refining. On the next day morning, beautiful female disciples walked into the shop shortly after Wang Xian opened it. "Handsome master, is my spiritual sword done?" A female disciple walked to Wang Xian passionately, staring at him with her bright and seductive eyes. "Your name, please." "Handsome master, I've brought 2 customers for you today." The girls smiled radiantly at Wang Xian. "Thank you." Wang Xian looked to the other girls and found them to be stealing glances at him from time to time while conversing softly. "Qin Zi. You can call me Qin Zi. Handsome master, you have to remember my name." "Handsome master, I'm here to collect my item." For the entire morning, the stream of people into and out of the small shop didn't break. Moreover, the girls from MT Shui weren't simply here to collect their elixir pills and spiritual equipment. They also brought him lots of customers. This made Wang Xian smile for the entire morning. "Master, master." In the evening, when the last female disciple from MT Shui had left, several figures entered. Wang Xian looked up and saw Piao Lingshui and Mu Wanbai. Other than the 2 of them, there was an old man and a middle-aged man beside them. "Ms. Piao, Ms. Mu." Wang Xian smiled radiantly when he saw them stepping in. Without the 2 of them, his business wouldn't have been as great. "I've brought you huge business today." Mu Wanbai smiled at Wang Xian such that her eyes formed a line. "Shouldn't you get me something in return?" "Huh." Wang Xian was taken aback. He turned to the old man and middle-aged men, showed a smile, and said, "Sure." "What a young master in alchemy and blacksmithing. You are really unparalleled in this world. If I hadn't heard from Piao Lingshui personally, I wouldn't have believed it." The old man scrutinized Wang Xian from top to bottom as he spoke. TSK, you are my grandpa, and yet you don't believe what I've said. When Mu Wanbai heard the old man, she pouted and stared at him. Ha! The old man chuckled. The next moment he took out an item, handed it to Wang Xian, and said, "This is our first meeting. Please accept this token as a gift from our Mu family." Huh! Wang Xian was taken aback. He looked at the box in the old man's hand, but didn't accept it right away. "I heard from Ms. Piao Lingxue that you wanted a space ring. Our Mu family happens to have a few. This is the one with the largest space that we have. It has the capacity of 1,000 cubic meters," the old man said with a smile. A space ring with 1,000 cubic meters. Wang Xian's eyes lit up. He looked at the old man and asked, "May I ask what your conditions are?" "It's obviously about refining elixir pills and equipment. I hope that, for our collaboration, you can give some interest to us." The old man was direct as he chuckled. Chapter 577. Collaboration. Let me be clear, you cheapskate master. This is a collaboration between you and my family. On account of us boosting your sales so much by referring customers to you yesterday, you mustn't act like such a cheapskate towards us anymore. Mu Wanbai told Wang Xian as she came to his side while pointing at him. "If my business scale becomes really prominent, I'll make sure to benefit your family greatly." Wang Xian answered with glee as he looked at Mu Wanbai. Speaking of which, Mu Wanbai and Piao Lingxue were his lucky stars. Had it not been for the two of them, he would not be enjoying such brisk business right now. "All right, since you've said so. Haha." Mu Wanbai nodded with much satisfaction upon hearing Wang Xian's promise. "It's a small shop I have with no space to sit around. Nonetheless, please go on, senior," Wang Xian said to the old man without any hesitation as he smiled at the latter and took over the box from his hands. Seeing that Wang Xian had accepted the present from him, the old man broke into an even wider smile. "The Mu family would like to have a batch of spiritual equipment and elixir pills refined," the old man exclaimed. "A batch?" Wang Xian asked. "How much are we looking at?" he continued while his heart fluttered. 200 portions of materials for level 10 spiritual equipment, 20 for level 11, 200 for level 5 elixir pills, and 40 for level 6 elixir pills, the old man replied. "In the near future, the spiritual equipment from the Yongchang cauldron will no longer be of prominent use when its cauldron world descends into the real world. What's more, the other cauldron worlds will soon follow and descend. Hence, some of the resources will have to convert into physical ones," the old man continued. "Is that so?" Wang Xian questioned following the old man's words. His heart skipped a beat. How much longer will it be before the Yongchang cauldron world descends into the real world? He asked in succession. 2 years at most, if not 1. Could be even shorter otherwise, the old man said to Wang Xian while the latter listened with a darkened expression. "As of now, I still don't know your name, master. May I know which immortal sect you are a disciple of?" The old man asked Wang Xian out of curiosity upon seeing the change in his expression. "I'm Wang Xian from the Dahong Immortal Sect." Wang Xian responded up front, for he had no means to hide the facts anyway. "What, Wang Xian of the Dahong Immortal Sect?" Just then, a gasp came from Mu Wanbai as she asked in utter surprise. Even Piao Lingxue looked towards Wang Xian in complete bewilderment. "So you're Wang Xian, Dragon King Wang Xian from MT Fingyu?" Mu Wanbai exclaimed loudly as she stared intently at Wang Xian with her jaw lowered. To which Wang Xian looked back at Mu Wanbai before nodding his head. "Oh, is he a renowned master?" the old man quizzed as he looked at his granddaughter, stunned. Dragon King Wang Xian from MT Fingyu, who rose to sudden fame. The one who broke through 8 mountain sects single-handedly within a day, and helped to bring MT Fingyu up to 11th, placing from 19th. Also, the one to defeat Kong Guanglin with a single strike on the very same day. despite your current placing as the 20th amongst all disciples within the Dahong immortal sect. Many are of the opinion that you actually possess the capabilities to come within the top 10. To think that you turned out to be the Dragon King. Rumor has it that the Dragon King's known for being obnoxious, but it appears that you're something of a cheapskate from what I see. Mu Wanbai shrieked as she fixed her gaze on Wang Xian. Is that so? Well, that's something I wasn't aware of. Wang Xian responded with a faint smile. A disciple of MT Fingyu. To think that this master here is also a member of our Dahong immortal sect. The old man chimed in while assessing Wang Xian with bouts of curiosity, scrutinizing him from top to bottom. Everyone from the Mu family was also a disciple of the Dahong immortal sect, many of whom were amongst the higher management. Given your prowess, master, you're more than qualified to become an elder of the Dahong immortal sect. The old man opined as he slipped into deep thought. An elder? Wang Xian uttered in mild surprise. Becoming an elder of the Dahong immortal sect was something which had not crossed his mind before. There's only 5 within the entire Dahong immortal sect who are blacksmith masters or alchemy masters. Yet, you're both Master Wang Xian. Becoming an elder would be such a breeze for you, the old man explained to Wang Xian. Wang Xian gave it a brief thought before dismissing the idea altogether almost immediately. Becoming an elder of the Dahong immortal sect would mean having to come across immortal class figures. To have such an existence paying attention to oneself and checking up on one's background would only result in complications very easily. Hence, it was best to avoid gaining the attention of such figures for the time being. Let's not focus on the other worlds for now. Given that the Mu family would like to have so much spiritual equipment and elixir pills refined, the amount of materials that we're looking at. Wang Xian trailed off while looking at the old man. The old man commented no further when he heard Wang Xian changing the topic. Presently, the Dahong immortal sect, Yongchang immortal sect, and immortal slaying sect were very much at ease. Given the millennium of peace enjoyed, many of the higher management figures within the immortal sects had come to establish their own clans, while even more had come to place their own clans as the top priority while relegating the immortal sect to second. Their various immortal class figures paid no heed to such a situation despite their awareness. Even though the senior management each had their own clans outside of the immortal sects, the clans would have to be dismissed and be fully integrated into the immortal sects upon the order from an expert amongst the immortal class figures. For the immortal class figures, such was the prowess and terror they possessed along with their authority. Based on the account from the young lass of my family, I have come to hear of your prowess in the refinement of equipment and elixir pills, master. Hence, should it be all right with you, we'll have 2 portions of the materials for the refining of equipment prepared. We'll also have twice the amount of spiritual grasses needed ready. What do you say? The old man proposed his idea to Wang Xian. While the Mu family did not have their own blacksmith, they did have their own alchemist who also happened to be a master of the trade. Their alchemist master could only guarantee a success rate of 30% for the refinement of level 5 elixir pills and 40% for those at level 6. Should Wang Xian be the one to do the refining, the results would no doubt turn out much better. Sure. Wang Xian nodded after a brief hesitation. All right then. Tomorrow, we'll have the materials brought over. The old man brightened up with glistening eyes. After a slight moment of hesitation, he continued, Master, should we be able to increase our future orders of spiritual equipment and elixir pills, can we still stick to the current rates? Sure. Wang Xian consented. Haha, how easygoing and decisive you are, master. Here's to our amiable collaboration. Amiable collaboration it is. The old man sang excitedly before extending a handshake to Wang Xian. Cheers to an amiable collaboration. Wang Xian nodded with a wide grin. Then we'll disturb you no further. We'll have the materials sent over tomorrow. Thank you for taking the trouble then, master. The old man smiled radiantly. Sure. Wang Xian nodded in response. We'll take our leave. The old man signaled while waving his hand. He then made his way out with Mu Wanbai and company following behind him. Little did I expect this cheapskate to be so easygoing today. Mu Wanbai chimed cheerfully as she emerged from the shop. We've made a huge profit through this collaboration, another old man in the company finally blurted out with eagerness. He had remained silent throughout earlier. I've helped our family to save a lot of materials. So what do you say, second grandpa? Shouldn't you reward me for that? Mu Wanbai spoke with glee as her eyes squinted into two crescents. Haha, yes indeed. I'll be sure to reward you handsomely, little lass. To think it only costs us 2 portions of spiritual grasses. 2 portions of spiritual grasses. When we're back, be sure to contact the other clans. Inform them that we can offer 4 elixir pills with 3 portions of material as the price. By then, I'm sure many of the clans will come over while we refer the refining work over to this master thereafter and earn the additional portion of materials. Haha, who knows? We might just strike it rich through this opportunity. The old man laughed in joy, while the other also gleamed with uncontrollable exhilaration. To the Mu family, it was a huge profit gained for them this time. Upon hearing the words from the second grandpa, Mu Wanbai stood dazed for a moment before returning to her senses. What a sly, wily fox he is. What a huge gain. Meanwhile, Wang Xian was also cheering in the shop with equal elation. Chapter 578, Shot to Fame 1. This collaboration was a windfall for the Mu family. Similarly, it was also a windfall for Wang Xian. Moreover, his was an even larger windfall. If Wang Xian was to learn what the 2 old men from the Mu family were thinking, he would be exhilarated instead of being infuriated. 200 sets of materials for level 10 spiritual equipment and 20 sets of materials for level 11 spiritual equipment. This would mean that I'll be able to get 100 pieces of level 10 spiritual equipment and 10 pieces of level 11 spiritual equipment. 200 sets of materials for level 5 elixir pills and 40 sets of level 6 elixir pills. I'll be able to get 400 level 5 elixir pills and 80 level 6 elixir pills. Summing them up, that's close to roughly 13 to 14 million points of dragon energy. I might not need a month to reach level 9 after all. When the time comes, this world won't be able to restrain me. Wang Xian lifted his head slightly and revealed a faint smile. Let's finish up the materials for today. 20 disciples from MT Shui requested to refine spiritual equipment or elixir pills. Although it wasn't as much as the previous day, Wang Xian still reaped substantial benefits. The next day, the disciples from MT Shui collected their spiritual equipment and elixir pills. The potential customers from MT Shui had been completely exhausted. The business of the shop died down once again. Wang Xian sat down on a chair and took a glance into the space ring. Seeing the spiritual equipment in it, he couldn't help but smile. The upgrade of the dragon field requires 1,000 pieces of spiritual equipment and inborn level materials. Soon, I'll be able to collect sufficient materials. When I get back, the Dragon Palace will be able to get a substantial upgrade. I wonder how Shu Qing, Qing Yue, and the rest are doing. Xiao Yu and Ajaya too. Wang Xian sank into deep thought. At the entrance of the shop, Wang Xian was about to receive the second batch of customers. Fuck them. Those scumbags from MT Jinliu made us wait in the queue by virtue of their good relationship with St. Forge Workshop. By the time it reaches our turn, it will probably be a few months from now. The most damning thing would be those scumbags from MT Jinliu creating more troubles for us in the dark. If they instruct St. Forge Workshop to constantly move us to the back of the queue, we really wouldn't know when our turn will come. Now that Yongchang World is about to descend into the real world, we might be facing off against the other 8 Cauldron Worlds. All the forces are turning their resources into strength in preparation for the upcoming uncertainty. All the equipment and elixir pill refining shops are experiencing explosive growth in business. Several elixir pill shops are even facing issues of sticking out. If we want to get elixir pills or spiritual equipment, we could only find alchemists or blacksmiths to refine for us. The alchemist and blacksmith in our Tianwen sect are truly a waste of our precious resources. Their success rate is too low. We've got to find a master. If only we learned about the outside world a little earlier. Now that we are a step slower, we have to wait a long time even when we want to get prepared. There's a small shop right here. The row of 5 people conversed as they walked. They were clearly in a foul mood. When they walked past Wang Xian's shop, a middle-aged man looked inquisitively at the signboard. Blacksmith master, alchemist master? Could there be masters in a small shop like this? The middle-aged man stared at the shop with doubts as he mumbled to himself. A master? The other 4 men were also doubtful. A small, wretched shop like this would have masters. It must be a scam. It's obvious that this is a front for scams. There's no way a master would remain in a wretched shop like this. An old man snorted coldly. Yeah, this shop looks a little too dilapidated. How can there be a master? Phut! They sure aren't ashamed of lying. A middle-aged man seconded and nodded his head as he continued walking towards it. Let me go take a look. A middle-aged man with long hair said coldly to the other 4 men with him. Old Go, what's the point? Isn't it obvious that this is just a front for scams? How could there be? I'm just taking a look. We can't find any other blacksmith master, right? The middle-aged man with long hair interrupted his sentence emotionlessly before he continued walking towards the shop. Old Go, you are grasping at straws. The other middle-aged man frowned. Seeing that the middle-aged man with long hair didn't pay heed to his advice, he followed grumpily. Let's go in too. If this shop is scamming, we will teach them a good lesson and let them know the consequences of scamming others. The middle-aged man said to the other 3 men. Go. The 4 men followed the middle-aged man with long hair into the shop. They looked around and instantly frowned deeply. Hey kid, where's the master in your shop? When the group saw that the shop didn't even have places for customers to sit, they were clearly displeased. When they saw Wang Xian sitting in the shop, they shouted. Huh. Wang Xian frowned when he saw the 5 of them stepping in and shouting at him. He replied plainly, Are you guys looking to refine elixir pills or equipment? Hey, brother, there's an alchemist master and blacksmith master in this shop? The middle-aged man with long hair suppressed his emotions and asked Wang Xian. Yeah. Wang Xian nodded his head. Are you sure? The other 4 men were suspicious. Please invite that master out. We would like to do business with him. You can speak to me. Are you guys looking to refine elixir pills or spiritual equipment? Wang Xian looked across the 5 people, maintained a smile, and asked, You. The 4 men stared at Wang Xian. Even that middle-aged man with long hair frowned slightly. This business concerns over 100 pieces of spiritual equipment and a large number of elixir pills. Can I trouble you to invite that master out? The middle-aged man held his emotions in check as he spoke to Wang Xian once again. I'm the master. If you guys are looking to refine spiritual equipment or elixir pills, you can speak directly to me. Wang Xian answered them. Are you freaking kidding me? A kid like you is a master? Just as Wang Xian completed his words, the other 4 men at the back stared harshly at him. Kid, if you are a master, I'll be a grandmaster. Freak, you must be courting a beating. Just as I thought, there's no master in this wretched shop. This must be a scam, and this kid must be really eager for a beating. The 4 of them exchanged words while staring angrily at Wang Xian. Even that middle-aged man with long hair was pulling a long face. Kid, your joke isn't funny at all. If there isn't any master here, why did you claim to have an alchemist master and blacksmith master on your signboard? It isn't going to end well if you dare to lie to us. The middle-aged man with long hair spoke to Wang Xian in a solemn tone. You don't believe me? Wang Xian raised an eyebrow. Hand me the materials, and you will naturally know. Are you still going to lie at this point? You must be thinking of scamming us out of our materials. Is that it? An old man stared harshly at Wang Xian, while gradually emitting terrifying aura. If you don't believe me, you can leave. Wang frowned and stared right at the 5 people. His tone had also gradually turned colder. Leave? We will definitely leave. However, I'm going to teach you a good lesson for fooling us before we leave. A bad-tempered, middle-aged man clenched his fists tightly as he walked towards Wang Xian. The middle-aged man with long hair didn't attempt to stop him while he stared harshly at Wang Xian. Their Tianwen sect was also one of the 6 sects below the immortal sects, with over 10,000 disciples. As part of the higher management of the sect, they were already in a foul mood before they came in. Yet, a kid from a shop was fooling them. This kid was a master. TSK. Even if they weren't killing him, they would want to teach him a good lesson. Chapter 579. Shot to Fame 2. Looking at the middle-aged man who was staring at him with coldness on his face in the shop, he frowned slightly, revealing a sharp, icy gaze. These 5 people not only refused to believe what he said, but also spoke with a fiery temper. Wang Xian was slightly furious about that. Slowly, balls of water energy condensed in his hands. Lad, I'll let you know the consequences of cheating us. Raging aura surged around the middle-aged man, just like violent tornadoes as he glowered at Wang Xian coldly. 5 blind things. A murderous intent flashed across Wang Xian's eyes as the energy around him thickened. Darn you, how dare you scold us? When the 5 of them heard what Wang Xian said, they exhibited icy killing intent, especially when one of the middle-aged men drew his long blade. Master. However, just before the 5 men from Tianwen sect and Wang Xian struck, a voice suddenly cut the air. Wang Xian froze as he gazed at the door, dispersing all the aura gathered around him. With their eyebrows raised, the 5 middle-aged and old men quickly looked to the doorway. Soon, the quintet revealed shocked looks. There were about 10 men who were at the door, including the old man from yesterday. Master, we're slightly late. The old man swept a look at the 5 Tianwen sect people as he beckoned to the group of people behind him with a smile. Master, these are the materials from the Mu family. Compared to what we mentioned yesterday, the materials have doubled now. As the old man spoke, 4 middle-aged men carried the chests and opened them on the floor. Inside the chests were metals that were level 10 and 11. Apart from that, there were chests of intact spiritual grass too. In a moment, the smell of the metal and the aroma of the spiritual medicine filled the entire store. Doubled. Wang Xian revealed a tinge of surprise in his eyes. He ignored the 5 middle-aged and old men as he walked to the chests. Yes, doubled. All the materials are here. We have 400 portions of materials for level 10 spiritual equipment, 400 portions of materials for level 5 elixir pills, 80 portions of materials for level 6 elixir pills. We only have more materials and not less. If you are not convinced, you can make a count, said the old man to Wang Xian with a smile. There's no need to. Given the reputation of Mu family, I trust you guys. Wang Xian swept his gaze across the 10 big chests with fervent eyes. Since the Mu family got him to refine spiritual equipment and elixir pills, they would not dare to shortchange him. Thank you for your trust. All the information for the required spiritual equipment and elixir pills is here. Just following accordingly will do, said the old man as he handed a manual to Wang Xian. Sure, rest assured that I'll get it done. You may send someone here to collect it 5 days from now. Wang Xian took over the manual with a smile. Great. Come directly to us if you have any other requirements. The old man nodded as he swept his gaze at the 5 people beside him. He chuckled and continued, Master, Since you have other business in the shop, we'll take our leave now." "Okay." Wang Xian nodded. As the group of people from Mu family left, the remaining 5 Tianwen sect people were totally dumbfounded. What had they just seen? They knew the group of people and that old man who came in just now. Mu family, the noble family from Dahong Immortal Sect, as well as the top family in the entire Yongchang world. Without any exaggeration, the Mu family was more compelling than the Tianwen sect. That old man was a budding realm expert, the great elder of Mu family, who took care of all matters in the family. At the same time, he was an elder of Dahong Immortal Sect. Coming from such a family, an old man with his status actually addressed this young man as Master. Master. When they spotted the chests that contained level 10 and 11 metal and spiritual grasses, their hearts beat violently. Mu family has their own alchemy master, so why would they let others refine pills for them? That's because the 5 of them exchanged looks with shock and astonishment in their eyes. This young man is a master that even Mu family has to treat with respect. Recalling their behaviors, just now, the 5 of them panicked. "Master, we." That middle-aged man who had been ready for a fight revealed a flustered look. He looked at Wang Xian as he stuttered with a trembling voice. They were desperately looking for an alchemy and blacksmith master. Now that they finally met one, they almost got into a fight with him. Oh my, this is absolutely... How can there be such a young master around? The 5 of them felt as if they'd been unjust. Since they were the ones with requests, they had to lower their heads with respect at this time. "Master, it was our fault just now. We were blinded. We apologize to you," the long-haired, middle-aged man quickly said to Wang Xian after taking a deep breath. "Yes, it's our fault. We apologize to you," the other 4 hurriedly echoed. A master that even Mu family treated respectfully was not someone who Tianwen sect could afford to offend. Even if they could afford to offend him, they would not want to do it since they needed a favor from him. Looking at them, Wang Xian revealed a hint of a sneer on his face. "Get lost now." Master, it's our fault." The long-haired, middle-aged man gritted his teeth when he saw the cold face of Wang Xian. He fished out 2 items from his pockets. "Master, it was our fault just now. These are our gifts as a token of apology." One of the 2 items was exuding a blazing flame while the other was emitting a cool and icy blue glow. Her spiritual flame ball and spiritual liquid ball, both of them are level 11. Sharp radiance flashed across Wang Xian's eyes as he gazed at those 2 spiritual beads. "How many pieces of spiritual equipment and elixir pills do you guys want to make?" Without any hesitation, Wang Xian took the 2 spiritual beads. On account of the fact that these 5 people were respectful and even took out level 11 spiritual beads, Wang Xian decided to drop the matter. After all, he would be the one who benefited the most when they were here to refine equipment and elixir pills. "Master, thank you for your forgiveness. You're such a magnanimous man." Seeing that Wang Xian accepted the 2 spiritual beads, and hearing his question, the 5 of them were excited as they licked his boots. The arrogance and fiery temper that they had when they first came and were long gone. "We want to refine 100 pieces of equipment and 200-odd elixir pills," an old man answered quickly. "Each piece of spiritual equipment will take 2 sets of material. For every 3 sets of elixir pills material, you'll get 4 elixir pills. This is the price at my place." Upon hearing them, Wang Xian's eyes gleamed. "What?" The 5 of them froze for a moment when they heard the quote, and they looked startled. He did not quote a high price, nor was it the market price. His price was simply too low. "Master, what are the extra charges?" the long-haired, middle-aged man asked, trying to contain his excitement. "No extra charges except what I mentioned just now." Wang Xian shook his head and replied immediately. Lowering his earnings was a way to obtain more profit. Chapter 580, Shot to Fame 3. The prices Wang Xian was charging were definitely the lowest in the entire Yongchang city. The main reason was largely because his success rate was insanely high. Even Grandmaster class existences wouldn't have a success rate of 100% in refining elixir pills or spiritual equipment. It was especially so for refining elixir pills. An alchemist grandmaster would at most have a success rate of 40 to 50% while refining level 5 elixir pills. As for refining level 6 elixir pills, the success rate would roughly be at 30%. However, Wang Xian could achieve 100%. In other words, even if Wang Xian had accepted 2 sets of materials for refining elixir pills, his rewards would still be great. This was also the reason why Wang Xian agreed to the collaboration with the Mu family. When the volume was great, he would totally accept a lower price. Therefore, Wang Xian also offered a seemingly exceptional low price to Tianwen sect. Not charging. When the 5 men heard Wang Xian, they were stunned once again. He's not charging? He's really not charging? Are there such good deals in the world? They felt this was a little unbelievable. However, they knew that he wasn't lying to them when they saw boxes of precious materials placed on the floor. He had no reason to scam them either. Master, your charges are even a lot cheaper than the Saint Forge workshop. The middle-aged man with long hair looked at Wang Xian and spoke with disbelief. You don't have to worry about the quality of the elixir pills or spiritual equipment. Wang Xian smiled and replied to him, Thank you, Master. Thank you, Master. We will arrange to send the materials here right away. Thank you, Master, for being magnanimous. After we offended you, you are still willing to do so. Let me apologize to you once again. The 5 of them said gratefully. This was the level of magnanimity that a master should have. Despite them offending Wang Xian just moments ago, Wang Xian was still willing to charge them a really low price. Wang Xian smiled faintly and said, You guys can go prepare the materials. Just send them over when you are ready. If you can, help me publicize my shop. Yes, yes. The 5 of them nodded and added, We will go get the materials ready, and we'll be back soon. All right. Wang Xian nodded his head. He looked to the boxes of materials beside him, waved his arm, and sent them to the 2nd floor. The 5 people from Tianwen sect didn't hesitate at all as they headed for the exit right away. This feels unreal. When the 5 men from Tianwen sect left the small shop, they looked at the signboard once again. They felt a little confused and lost. Yeah, that young man is really a master. Moreover, even the Mu family looked for him to refine their elixir pills and spiritual equipment. I wonder if he's the alchemist master or blacksmith master. Is there another master? It has to be. We are lucky that the people from the Mu family were here. If we clashed with the master, the outcome would have been really unimaginable. That master is magnanimous, and we are really lucky. Yeah, we are really lucky. As the 5 of them conversed, they couldn't help but be excited. They would have never expected a small shop like this to really have a master. Moreover, the master was magnanimous. He didn't take offense and agreed to refine elixir pills and spiritual equipment for them. This made the 5 of them greatly impressed by Wang Xian. That's a real master. Let's go and get our materials. Let's go. The master even charges a lot lower than the Saint Forge workshop. It's a blessing in disguise that the bunch of scumbags from Saint Forge workshop rejected us previously. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gotten such a great deal. The 5 of them headed back towards their sect excitedly. In less than an hour, they came back with several boxes of materials. Master, master. The 5 of them carried boxes of materials into the shop with some other disciples of Tianwen sect. You can just leave them there. Wang Xian was pleasantly surprised to see them back so quickly as he instructed them. Yes, yes. The 5 of them nodded their heads and instructed their disciples. Master, when will our spiritual equipment and elixir pills be done? The 5 of them rubbed their hands as they asked Wang Xian, Your orders are fewer. I'll refine your materials first. You guys can return to collect in the afternoon tomorrow. Wang Xian looked across the boxes and spoke directly. Afternoon tomorrow? So fast? The 5 of them were shocked once again. Just come back tomorrow and they will be ready. All right, all right. The 5 of them nodded their heads and didn't question further. After exchanging a few more words with Wang Xian, they left the shop. Puff! It's another rewarding day. Wang Xian moved all the materials to the second floor. He couldn't help but feel exhilarated. The materials and elixir pills from the Mu family would allow him to gain over 30 million points of dragon energy. As for the elixir pills of Tianwen sect, he would also be able to gain over 6 million points of dragon energy. Together, his dragon energy would reach approximately 40 million. On top of that, he would still get a huge batch of spiritual equipment. This is even more insane than robbing a bank. Wang Xian's eyes stared fervently at the various materials on the second floor. He closed the shop for the day. The spiritual flame ball can be devoured by the Inferno Dragon Ball, while the spiritual liquid ball can be used to nourish the water Dragon Ball. Wang Xian had 3 Dragon Balls currently. A level 11 Inferno Dragon Ball, a level 10 Wood Dragon Ball, and a level 10 Water Dragon Ball. The level of the Inferno Dragon Ball was the highest. After devouring the level 11 Spiritual Flame Ball, the Inferno Dragon Ball would get a substantial lift. The Wood Dragon Ball was the level 9 Spiritual Wood Ball he obtained on the floating island previously. He had now nurtured it to level 10. The 3 Dragon Balls were of little use to him currently. However, when the Dragon Balls reached the same level as him, the might of the Dragon Balls would be incredible. Wang Xian spent a full 15 hours before completely refining the materials brought by Tianwen sect into spiritual equipment and elixir pills. The boxes of spiritual equipment and elixir pills would definitely draw a frenzied crowd if placed in the underworld. In Yongchang World, there were also precious items. Master. At noon, the voices of the 5 old men from Tianwen sect could be heard. They are done. Feel free to take them away. Wang Xian waved his arm, and the boxes of spiritual equipment and elixir pills flew from the second floor. Subsequently, he walked down while wearing a faint smile. Done. The 5 of them were exhilarated. These elixir pills and spiritual equipment were all exceptionally precious to Tianwen sect. They are done. They are all done. Oh gosh! The spiritual equipment and elixir pills are done. Thank you, Master. Thank you. When they opened the boxes and saw the spiritual equipment and elixir pills, they were elated and thanked Wang Xian loudly. You are welcome. If you can help to introduce customers and send them over, please do so. Wang Xian waved his arms at them and continued, I'm going back to work. Yes, yes, Master. The 5 of them nodded their heads respectfully before turning their fervent gaze back to the spiritual equipment and elixir pills. Haha, let's go. I was still worried that we couldn't find a master to refine for us. Even if we found one, it might take 3 to 4 months or even 6 to 7 months. Now, we got it done in a single day. Our luck is really off the charts. The 5 of them carried the boxes out joyously and loaded them onto a horse carriage. Let's go, the 5 of them shouted happily. Old Go, take a look at the entrance of St. Forge Workshop. The scumbags from MT Jinliu are there too. When the horse carriage went past the entrance of the St. Forge Workshop, a middle-aged man squinted his eyes and saw a group of people before the entrance of St. Forge Workshop. The middle-aged man with long hair looked over, and a thought struck him. That master forgave us and still refined spiritual equipment and elixir pills for us. Our Tianwen sect should also try to repay this graciousness and express our gratitude. Since that master asked us to introduce customers to him, it's only natural that we do our best. Chapter 581. St. Forge Workshop is indeed trash. 1. Yong Chong would soon descend to the real world, and information about the real world had been divulged in Yong Chong Immortal Sect. But the people and forces in Yong Chong world were not worried about the real world at all. It was just the age of Dharma decline. When they arrived in the real world, they would dominate and roam around without any difficulties. The underworld in the real world might seem like trash, but they were more concerned about the other immortal sects in the rest of the 9 cauldrons worlds. Since they were only part of the 9 worlds, there would be powerful cultivators in the other 8 worlds as well. The people in Yongchang world would need to be well prepared to face these cultivators. Hence, all the forces and families were making their preparation as soon as the news of Yongchang world descending to the real world was out. All the families and forces had converted their resources into strength to deal with the real world. Metallic materials were converted to spiritual equipment, spiritual grass to elixir pills. That was the reason why alchemist masters and blacksmith masters became popular figures, while the elixir pills and weapons had become the top-selling items in the shops. As the biggest workshop for refining equipment and elixir pills, various alchemist masters and blacksmith masters worked in St. Forge Workshop, and their business was unusually hot. Even those pre-ordered spiritual equipment and elixir pills could only be available months later. For the last 2 days, many customers had gathered at the door of St. Forge Workshop. At one glance, one would know that all of them came from families that possessed relatively great strength in the Yongchang world. St. Forge Workshop is pricey, and even those unknown alchemists are arrogant. Since they cannot take in that much business, we should not let some of our friends suffer while waiting in line for such an unscrupulous shop. The long-haired, middle-aged man of Tianwen sect drew a cold smile and murmured to himself, "That's right, many people do not know about that master shop. We should help him to promote his shop." The remaining 4 middle-aged men and elders revealed creepy smiles. The 5 of them exchanged gazes as they grinned at each other. They slowed down their carriage and walked slowly toward the St. Forge Workshop. "I know everyone can't wait, but you guys need to wait. It will take another 1.5 months before it's your turn." St. Forge Workshop is the biggest alchemy and blacksmith workshop in Yongchang City. No other places are comparable to us, but you guys need to wait. When the 5 people arrived at the door, they heard the staff speaking to a few in-charges from various forces and families with arrogance. The people from the various forces and families had twisted expressions, but they did not dare to flare up. After all, they needed St. Forge Workshop. "Everyone, just queue up and that will do. All it takes is another 1 or 2 months. Don't be anxious." At this time, several middle-aged men told the surrounding crowd this with a calm look. "The weapons and elixir pills of MT Jinliu are in the process of being refined now. You guys are not in a hurry, but we are," said an old man to that middle-aged man, coldly with an awful expression. "Haha, better than not waiting in the line." The middle-aged man from MT Jinliu chuckled softly as he spoke. Several people turned to the 5 men on the carriage. With lips drawn, he continued, "Unlike some forces who can't even get in the line." Upon hearing what the people from MT Jinliu said, some of the elders at the side furrowed their brows and peered to the side when they spotted the 5 men from Tianwen sect. MT Jinliu and Tianwen sect were enemies, and everyone on the spot knew about that. Haha. The Tianwen sect complained that the waiting time was too long and said they were not going to refine anything in St. Forge Workshop. I would like to see which other workshops can accept such a large volume of orders apart from St. Forge Workshop. The staff at the side peered at the 5 men from Tianwen sect and issued subtle warnings to the rest of the forces. The in-charges of the forces had a change in their expression and took in a deep breath. "Well, we can wait. Sorry for all the trouble. These are some gifts of appreciation." Several of them fished out some gifts and handed them over to the staff with twisted expressions. The staff of St. Forge Workshop nodded gently with broad smiles. At this time, the 5 men from Tianwen sect who had just arrived overheard their conversations. All of them revealed a tinge of coldness and disdain in their eyes. Before they could even seek trouble, the other party was already picking on them. "Hey, Tianwen sect, where are you heading to? Have you found a master of alchemy and blacksmithing?" Before the 5 men from Tianwen sect speak, those middle-aged men from MT Jinliu ridiculed them for their misfortunes. MT Jinliu and Tianwen sect had been going against each other for centuries. They would not miss any chance of bringing down their opponents. Alchemy master, blacksmith master. Upon hearing their sneers, a strange look surfaced on the faces of the 5 men from Tianwen sect. "Of course we did. We even got our spiritual equipment and elixir pills done. Haha, interesting." Several middle-aged men from MT Jinliu chuckled as they looked on, scornful of what they heard. "You guys just want to act tough." Who else in the entire Yongchang city, other than St. Forge Workshop, has a blacksmith master and alchemy master? Haha, interesting. The staff of St. Forge Workshop sneered upon hearing it. The 5 men from Tianwen sect also burst out laughing when they heard their sarcasm. With unbridled looks on their faces, they stared right into their eyes. Don't assume the St. Forge Workshop dominates the entire Yongchang city. You bunch of arrogant brats. Even an insignificant staff member dares to act insolently. Well, when it comes to blacksmithing and alchemy, the St. Forge Workshop is the best in Yongchang city. That staff member narrowed his eyes with his usual pridefulness on his face. Some people are fuming with anger since they can't find alchemy and blacksmith masters. The few middle-aged men from MT Jinliu slightly lifted their chins, beaming, as they enjoyed the flustered looks of Tianwen sect. A few in-charges from other forces shook their heads slowly as they looked at Tianwen sect. To them, the 5 of them did look as though they had lost their minds out of panic. "Is that so? You guys are really confident. Do you think St. Forge Workshop rules the entire market of Yongchang?" A fiery-tempered, middle-aged man stood up on the carriage immediately, revealing an insolent look. "Brazen brats, does Tianwen sect need St. Forge Workshop to forge weapons and refine pills for us? Do you think I care? The St. Forge Workshop is just an unscrupulous shop for us. Haha, I'll show you the things we had refined by a master. If not, you guys would think that St. Forge Workshop is the only shop in the entire Yongchang city." Chapter 582. St. Forge Workshop is indeed trash, too. Swish. Ka. As the bad-tempered middle-aged man spoke, he stood on the horse carriage and waved his arm at it. A gust of strong wind opened the boxes on the horse carriage. With an extremely brazen and unruly expression, he shouted loudly, "Do I need St. Forge Workshop, the place for scams, to refine my spiritual equipment and elixir pills? In my eyes, you guys are trash. You guys are trash." The middle-aged man from Tianwen sect was brazen and arrogant. Standing on the horse carriage while he was on the most prosperous street in Yongchang City, he shouted loudly to everyone that St. Forge Workshop was trash. Few people in the entire Yongchang City would have the guts to say such words. This was because with the strength and capabilities of St. Forge Workshop, people might die laughing because of what you said. Yet this middle-aged man stood on his horse carriage and opened up the 6 to 7 boxes directly. In these boxes were various pieces of spiritual equipment and elixir pills packed tightly together. This scene truly shocked everyone around. It was especially so for the group at the entrance of St. Forge Workshop. The employees of St. Forge Workshop, the few middle-aged men from MT Jinliu, and the people in charge of several other forces. They were astonished to see the various pieces of spiritual equipment and elixir pills on the horse carriage of Tianwen sect. Their eyes widened, and they clearly couldn't believe what they were seeing. That employee from St. Forge Workshop was dumbfounded. His expression changed rapidly and he shouted coldly, "Hey! You guys are deceiving yourselves or trying to deceive us. After finding a batch of spiritual equipment and elixir pills and passing them off as those refined by an alchemist master and a blacksmith master. How interesting. Tianwen sect is really laughable. Did you guys find a batch of elixir pills and spiritual equipment to prove to us how dumb you guys are?" The middle-aged men from MT Jinliu remarked sarcastically. Hee, you guys can choose not to believe us. That is expected, as you guys are too arrogant. The middle-aged man with long hair looked across the crowd coldly. In the end, his eyes fell on the few forces standing by the side. Our Tianwen sect isn't free and silly to that extent. These were refined by an alchemist master and blacksmith master we found yesterday. They can be found in a shop a short distance away. The prices they are charging are also a lot lower than the St. Forge workshop. The leaders of several forces frowned instantly and were clearly hesitating. "Do you really mean it?" an old man asked the middle-aged man with long hair. "If we are lying to you guys, may our Tianwen sect be annihilated," the middle-aged man with long hair replied. The reply from the middle-aged man with long hair shocked the entire crowd. A deadly vow like this wasn't to be joked about. Is there really a shop with an alchemist master and blacksmith master? Surprise beamed in the eyes of that old man as he pursued it further. Are you guys still thinking that I'm joking? Let me bring you guys there. Once you are there, you guys will know St. Forge Workshop is a pile of trash. The middle-aged man commented solemnly. In that case, I'll be troubling you. The in-charges of several forces were excited and greeted the middle-aged man with long hair. Let's go. The 5 men from Tianwen sect laughed proudly, turned their horse carriage around and headed towards Wang Xian's shop. The leaders of several forces followed behind without any hesitation. Other than our St. Forge workshop, which other shop in Yongchang City would have an alchemist master and blacksmith master? This couldn't be possible. Those people from Tianwen sect must be up to something. The employees of St. Forge Workshop were extremely gloomy. After seeing the crowd that left, they reported to the shop immediately. Let's go take a look. The group of middle-aged men from MT Jinliu exchanged glances and were clearly suspicious of the whole incident. Let's follow them and see what tricks they are up to. Let's go. A group followed behind the 5 men from Tianwen sect. We have brought huge businesses for that master this time. If news of Master's shop was to get out, would there still be a St. Forge workshop? As compared to the Master's shop, it's clear that they are overcharging the customers. That's right. The 5 men from Tianwen sect grinned. Wang Xian's shop was less than 1,000 meters away from St. Forge Workshop. In less than 3 minutes, the crowd had arrived at the entrance of the shop. Come, follow us. The 5 men from Tianwen sect jumped off the horse carriage and spoke to the people in charge of several forces behind them. The group of 7 to 8 people looked across and was stunned. They looked blankly at the shop the 5 men had entered. Would this be the shop of a master? That old man opened his mouth in shock. Let's go in now. A middle-aged man hesitated for a moment before following the 5 men from Tianwen sect. Master. When the 5 men from Tianwen sect entered the shop, they didn't see Wang Xian. They immediately shouted for him. What's the matter? At this moment, Wang Xian was refining elixir pills. Master, we have brought you some customers. Would you like to meet them? The 5 men from Tianwen sect greeted him respectfully. Oh, bring them to the 2nd floor. He wasn't done with the elixir pills before him and thus couldn't leave the 2nd floor. Yes. The 5 men from Tianwen sect nodded their heads. They turned to the in-charge of the several forces, smiled, and said, Follow us to the 2nd floor. The people in charge of the several forces looked around the shop and frowned deeply. They looked at the people from Tianwen sect and were a little curious. Among the people from Tianwen sect, there was a budding realm expert. Yet he was still being so respectful a while ago. In the entire Yongchang world, other than the immortals, only a master was deserving of such respect. The 7 to 8 of them had no hesitation as they followed the 5 men from Tianwen sect to the second floor. Isn't this a little too run down? Why would a master be? With questions in their mind, the group headed to the second floor. However, they were instantly shocked by what they saw on the second floor. It was still roughly the same 30 square meters of space. What could they have seen? There were various boxes filled with various materials. A box full of level 11 metals, boxes of level 6 spiritual medicines. This deeply shocked them. Each of them was in charge of one of several forces in Yongchang world. Although they might not be among the elite forces, they were definitely not weak. However, if one was to ask them to take out such an amount of materials, they wouldn't be able to do so. Yet, they were placed casually in boxes on the second floor. These materials were from the Mu family. Don't speak and wait for the master to complete his refining. The 5 men from Tianwen sect were pleasantly pleased when they saw the group behind them, dumbfounded by what they were seeing. The crowd looked towards the master in the middle with shock and awe. However, their eyes widened once again as disbelief overwhelmed them. Chapter 583. St. Forge Workshop is indeed trash 3. A young man who could easily pass as a juvenile was spotted in the center of the room. At this moment, he was refining elixir pills at a rapid speed. With compelling art of water refining, his arms were swinging fast in front of him. Before him and the rest were elixir pills forming at an amazing speed. Each pill contained an immense amount of energy. They were familiar with this type of energy as it came from level 6 elixir pills. Level 6 elixir pills could significantly enhance the strength of Dan realm experts. However, only master-level alchemists could refine level 6 elixir pills. Form. Wang Xian pretended to be someone great as he let out a bellow while elixir pills quickly formed before him. Done! He yelled again when 4 elixir pills were formed amid a faint glow. Instantly, the room was filled with the aroma of medicine. Everyone gasped involuntarily. Level 6 elixir pills. Level 6 elixir pills. Master, he's a real master. The various in charges could not help but narrow their eyes as they revealed a surprised look. This young man looked too young to be an alchemy master. He was the master that even Mu family had handed over their materials to for refining elixir pills. A respectful look surfaced on everyone's faces. Who wants to refine spiritual equipment or elixir pills? With an arm swing, Wang Xian placed the 4 elixir pills in a jade container within a chest. They noticed that the jade container was already filled with all kinds of elixir pills. Master, we would like you to refine elixir pills. One by one, the in-charges from the various forces turned fervent and spoke immediately. Do you know the price? Wang Xian stood up and said, Price. All of them froze for a moment before they turned to the 5 Tianwen sect people. 2 sets of material for 1 piece of spiritual equipment. 4 elixir pills for 3 sets of elixir pills material. No other additional fees, said the 5 men from Tianwen sect to the in-charges as they slightly lifted their heads. What? Gosh, that's so cheap? How is this possible? It's much cheaper than St. Forge Workshop. All the in-charges were stupefied as they widened their eyes with looks of disbelief on their faces. Yes, this is the price. Bring your materials over if you want the service. I'll get all your spiritual equipment and elixir pills ready within half a month, said Wang Xian indifferently. This, Master. Great. We'll bring over the materials now. Master, You offer such an affordable service. You're a great master that St. Forge Workshop can't even be compared to. The in-charges of various forces were going crazy. Damn, compared to St. Forge Workshop, this master was not only someone great, but a saint. They could save at least 60,000 or up to hundreds of thousands of spiritual stones as compared to St. Forge Workshop if they handed the materials to this master. Comparing the two of them, St. Forge Workshop was just none other than an unscrupulous shop. Hee, how can we compare you to St. Forge Workshop? St. Forge Workshop is absolute trash in front of you, the master. The 5 men from Tianwen sect immediately licked his boots. St. Forge Workshop. Wang Xian turned to the crowd as he recalled his last visit to St. Forge Workshop. When he thought of the 2 masters, Xuanhua and Qingming, coldness flashed in his eyes. He remarked plainly, St. Forge Workshop is indeed trash. At this time, people from MT Jinliu, an alchemist, and that staff member from St. Forge Workshop who was following behind, stepped into the shop together. They were looking around with disdainful looks. Such a small shop like this could actually house a master? What a joke! The alchemist from St. Forge Workshop ridiculed. What a trashy shop! What master! The several middle-aged men from MT Jinliu mocked. The St. Forge Workshop is indeed trash. At this time, an impassive voice came from the second floor, which darkened the expressions of the staff and the alchemist from St. Forge Workshop. Who dares to badmouth our St. Forge Workshop? Do you wish to die? Without any expression, the alchemist of St. Forge Workshop shouted to the stairs. Ha! Upon hearing the voice from downstairs, Wang Xian chuckled coldly. Chase them away. Those who want to refine equipment and elixir pills. Bringing over the materials will do. Yes, master. The in-charges immediately spoke with respect. Wang Xian nodded and continued with his work. The various in-charges and the 5 men from Tianwen sect exchanged gazes as they walked down the stairs. Which ignorant dog is yelling in the master's shop? One of the in-charges bellowed coldly. Who are you guys? How dare you say the St. Forge Workshop is trash? Are you seeking death? The alchemist of St. Forge Workshop did not recognize the group of people as he stared daggers at them with cold eyes. However, the staff member of St. Forge Workshop and the few middle-aged men from St. Forge Workshop were taken aback. So what if I said St. Forge Workshop is trash? Trying to stop people from commenting when you're indeed trash? Immense aura began to surge around the in-charges of several forces. At this moment, they totally disregarded the St. Forge Workshop. Just now, they had really needed help from St. Forge Workshop. But even a staff member from St. Forge Workshop dared to show them attitude and act brazenly. They had already stomached their anger for very long. If not for the fact that they required help from St. Forge Workshop, why would they even swallow this? Now that they had found a master who offered a more affordable price than St. Forge Workshop and a shorter waiting time, why would they give face to an insignificant alchemist? Or even to an employee? They were in charges of the various forces. As everyone spoke, they walked down the stairs with icy cold eyes, glowering at the 2 people from St. Forge Workshop with rage. We said St. Forge Workshop is trash, and you asked us if we're looking for our deaths. An old man swept his expressionless eyes at the 2 of them, exploding an immense amount of aura and oppression that aimed straight at them. What? You people? The alchemist of St. Forge Workshop had a huge change in his expression as he looked at them in fear. Hand over the things that we gave you, brat. The old man fixed his eyes on the staff member disdainfully. You people, don't you want your equipment and pills from St. Forge Workshop? You guys. The eyes of the staff widened with astonishment as he growled with an awkward look. The trashy St. Forge Workshop? Damn you! The elixir pills and spiritual equipment over here are much cheaper than you guys. Why should we go over to your place? A middle-aged man could not be bothered as he screamed at them, Get out of here now and don't taint this place. Trash from St. Forge Workshop. You people, you people. The alchemist and the staff member of St. Forge Workshop paled as they looked at them with surprise. How could they say such things to St. Forge Workshop? Why did their attitude change so quickly? Chapter 584. Famous throughout Yongchang 1. When the alchemist and employees of St. Forge Workshop walked out bitterly from the shop, they were a little out of sorts. As an alchemist of the St. Forge Workshop, his standing in Yongchang City wasn't any inferior to a half-step to budding realm expert. Yet they were chided moments ago, and they were calling St. Forge Workshop trash. Facing the confrontational group, who wasn't willing to show him any respect, the alchemist of St. Forge Workshop walked back to St. Forge Workshop with a long face. TSK, arrogant scumbags. Do they really think we could get our spiritual equipment and elixir pills refined without your St. Forge Workshop? An old man snorted coldly. He looked at the middle-aged man beside him and said, "Let's go back now and get our family to prepare the materials for the master to refine. We've got to get back too and ask our families to prepare the materials. Go." The in-charges of several forces returned to their families and sects rapidly. They were burning with excitement and wanted to bring the materials over as soon as they could. Considering the favorable prices the master was charging, the entire Yongchang City might flood here if other forces learned about it. They had to get their materials to the master before the rest, so they could get their products as soon as possible. When the group from Tianwen sect saw them leaving in a hurry, their lips curved into a smile. They smirked at the group from MT Jinliu and commented, "A bunch of dimwits!" As they finished their words, they boarded their horse carriage and headed back towards their sects with greatly improved moods. The few middle-aged men from MT Jinliu were completely stunned. They looked at the group of forces that had left with astonishment as their expressions changed rapidly. What just happened? What's happening? A small shop like this. Could it be? Could it be? The group of middle-aged men from MT Jinliu stared the shop before their eyes and were hesitating. Why don't we go in and ask? A middle-aged man hesitated for a moment before saying this to the other few men. Go. Let's get in. The few middle-aged men walked into the small shop with lots of questions. Fuck, that dirty St. Forge Workshop. As compared to this master, they are overcharging too much. They are trash. However, the few middle-aged men walked out of the shop furiously in less than 10 minutes. They were still feeling a little shock, but anger was overwhelming them. I finally understand why those forces are saying St. Forge Workshop is trash. As compared to this master, they are seriously overcharging us. Oh gosh, we have lost. We have lost so much. The group of middle-aged men were shivering with anger. They were indeed closer to St. Forge Workshop. However, they didn't get any preferential price for refining spiritual equipment or elixir pills this time despite having better relationships. Instead, they even forked over 40,000 spiritual stones to bribe the two masters of St. Forge Workshop. This allowed their orders to be fulfilled first and pushed Tianwen sect all the way to the back. Yet, they would have never expected the prices of this small shop to be so cheap. If we had asked this master to refine our spiritual equipment and elixir pills, we would have saved at least several hundreds of thousands of spiritual stones. We're talking about several hundreds of thousands here. The face of a middle-aged man was contorted from anger. Why don't we bring our materials over and cancel our order from St. Forge Workshop? Cancel our order from St. Forge Workshop? But we have given the two masters 40,000 spiritual stones. Moreover, if we do this, would it be? There's nothing to feel bad about. Those two bloodsuckers, we have a good relationship with them because we have been offering gifts to them from time to time. As long as we have spiritual stones, we don't have to worry about not finding an alchemist master or blacksmith master. Yeah, you are right. Let's go and bring our materials over. Even if we can't get our 40,000 spiritual stones back, we could still save 100,000 spiritual stones. The group from MT, Jinliu exchanged glances and made their way towards St. Forge workshop immediately. Several middle-aged men arrived at the backyard of St. Forge workshop. They looked around and saw several forces and customers collecting their spiritual equipment and elixir pills or delivering materials. At this moment, that alchemist was conversing softly with that employee and Master Xuanhua. Master, Xuanhua frowned. We don't have to pay attention to him. In the entire Yongchang city, none of the forge workshops or elixir refining shops are a match for our St. Forge workshop. TSK, if those forces aren't going to refine their items here, ask them to get lost. Our St. Forge workshop isn't lacking their business. Master, Xuanhua said to them domineeringly. He looked across the few forces in the courtyard with a sense of superiority. Yes, Master. Those few forces are really courting their own demise. In the future, we will reject all their requests to refine elixir pills and spiritual equipment. Recalling the attitude from the in-charges of those forces, the alchemist remarked coldly. Master Xuanhua waved his hand, lifted his head proudly, and didn't say another word. Master Xuanhua. At this moment, the group of middle-aged men from MT Jinliu shouted. Huh. Master Xuanhua turned around, saw the group, and showed a faint smile. MT Jinliu was a respectable sect, and this group of middle-aged men knew how to maintain relationships by sending gifts. Hi, guys, we have received the materials from MT Jinliu. Rest assured, in half a month, we will be done with your request. Master Xuanhua said to the few middle-aged men with a smile. Master Xuanhua, we would like to apologize to you, a middle-aged man from MT Jinliu said coldly upon seeing the smile on Master Xuanhua's face. This was the first time he was so cold to a master. Master Xuanhua, we have changed our minds suddenly and would like to take back our materials. Master Xuanhua, can you guys refund us our fees for workmanship? Huh. Master Xuanhua was shocked to hear him. He frowned and asked, What does MT Jinliu mean by this? Our MT Jinliu encountered some issues and will have to take back the materials. Please refund the workmanship fees of 70,000 spiritual stones. As for the rest, we aren't going to pursue it. The middle-aged man from MT Jinliu spoke again. Master Xuanhua was clearly displeased by what he heard from the middle-aged man. He said, To rush your spiritual equipment and elixir pills, we have lost substantial business. Now that you guys are saying you want a refund, this isn't too appropriate, right? Master Xuanhua had thought that the previous few forces had left out of anger as they had to wait too long. Master Xuanhua, we understand our request is a little unreasonable, but I hope you will agree. The group of middle-aged men wouldn't want to offend the St. Forge workshop and thus spoke in a conciliatory tone. Our losses have to be compensated after all. We can return the materials to you, but you won't be getting back the fees for workmanship. Master Xuanhua shook his head as he answered. Upon hearing Master Xuanhua's reply, the group of middle-aged men from MT Jinliu instantly turned solemn. Master, we are already forgoing the 40,000 spiritual stones we have given you guys. Chapter 585, famous throughout Yongchang too. The middle-aged men from MT Jinliu were a little pissed off. Without that young master's shop, they would not think that they had lost out a great deal by having St. Forge workshop refine spiritual equipment and elixir pills for them. However, it was a stark contrast between the two workshops with that young master around. St. Forge workshop charged way too much. The two of them could not be compared at all. None of them were willing to pass their jobs to St. Forge workshop anymore. Yet, the workshop disagreed about refunding the fees for the workmanship when they asked for their materials and fees back. This infuriated the few middle-aged men from MT Jinliu. Guys, I don't know what you're thinking, but this isn't right. The spiritual stones that you have given to us were on the condition that we would speed up your job. This works the same as the workmanship fees. Now that you've changed your mind, it is natural that we recoup some losses. If you think this isn't appropriate, you can continue with the job. We'll deliver the items to you on time. Otherwise, Master Xuanhua spoke with great awe as he swept his cold gaze across the few of them. As a master, the #1 blacksmith master in the largest workshop of Yongchang City, and one of the bosses of St. Forge Workshop, he had the right to be prideful. He had the right to disregard MT Jinliu. Looking at the domineering and prideful Master Xuanhua, the middle-aged men from MT Jinliu grimaced as they darkened their faces, exchanging looks with one another. Continue our job in St. Forge Workshop? Master Xuanhua, we're not that silly. A middle-aged man remarked coldly. Her? What do you mean by that? Watch your mouth, people. Upon hearing the furious tone from that middle-aged man, Master Xuanhua's blood boiled at the same time. No one could ever challenge a master's temper. What do we mean? Master Xuanhua, if a workshop requires 2 sets of materials for a piece of spiritual equipment, 3 sets of materials for 4 elixir pills, no other spiritual stones charges, what would be our choice? Why, Master Xuanhua, St. Forge Workshop is overcharging us, and you don't even allow us to switch to another shop? Said a middle-aged man from MT Jinliu with cold eyes as he looked at the furious Master Xuanhua. Her? Excuse me? What did you say? Master Xuanhua was slightly stunned by his words as he narrowed his eyes. What are they talking about? How can there be such a cheap workshop around? Could such an affordable place be around? And it's refined by a master? A few forces and customers around the area were keeping constant attention over here when they overheard the argument. Upon hearing the middle-aged man, everyone was caught by surprise. We already made it clear. The St. Forge Workshop charges too much as compared to another master's workshop. It's only common sense for us to choose the cheaper one. Thus, we'd like Master Xuanhua to return our materials and refund our workmanship fees. The middle-aged man said impassively once again, Refining a piece of equipment only needs 2 sets of materials and 4 elixir pills for 3 sets of materials. No other spiritual stones charges. Where can you find such a good deal? Master Xuanhua's expression slowly twisted. Haha, that's the truth. A middle-aged man revealed a cold smile. He raised his voice. Master Xuanhua, we would like to take back our materials and workmanship fees. Please return them to us. Otherwise, this will ruin our friendship. You guys. Upon seeing the middle-aged men from MT Jinliu standing firm against him, Xuanhua darkened his expression as he stared at them with flickering radiance in his eyes. The middle-aged men from MT Jinliu had decided to confront Master Xuanhua. This time they did not give in at all. Fine. If you are taking back all your things this time, I, Xuanhua, will not refine anything for you, even if you kneel before St. Forge Workshop next time. Master Xuanhua grimaced and spoke in a low voice. Haha, Master Xuanhua, rest assured that MT Jinliu will never be back to St. Forge Workshop for any items. Will not cross our paths in the future. Haha, goodbye. The middle-aged men from MT Jinliu burst out a clap of laughter as they headed outside. Their actions embarrassed Master Xuanhua even more. All the forces and customers fixed their quizzical eyes on the people from MT Jinliu. Why did they dare to fall out with St. Forge Workshop? Refining a piece of equipment only needs 2 sets of materials and 4 elixir pills for 3 sets of materials. No other spiritual stones charges. Is this true? Radiance glistened in an elder's eyes as he stared at the figures from MT Jinliu. With a slight hesitation, he immediately chased after them. The rest of the forces and customers hurriedly caught up with them. If what those people from MT Jinliu said was true, they could save hundreds of thousands of spiritual stones when they refined equipment and elixir pills. This is impossible. How can there be such a low price? There's not much profit at all. Master Xuanhua clenched his fist with disbelief. At such a rate, a workshop would not possibly earn many spiritual stones except for some materials. This was hard for him to believe, and he looked dreadful with a constant mix of expressions. The surrounding workers, blacksmiths, and alchemists were full of surprise as a bad feeling suddenly shrouded over them. In less than 5 minutes, those customers and forces who had just left returned to the workshop with a surprised look. Master Xuanhua, we're taking back our material. Sorry. A force that had yet to make his payment announced frankly. Master Xuanhua, I'm sorry. We're going to another place. Look, we did not bring any damage to your business. Can you return our materials and spiritual stones? Another force who had paid asked Master Xuanhua. Master Xuanhua. One by one, the customers and forces requested that their spiritual stones and materials be returned, as they would not require the services of St. Forge Workshop. Seeing this, Master Xuanhua was stupefied and his heart raced violently. All the staff in St. Forge Workshop were plunged into darkness. The sky seemed to have fallen on them, but why did this happen? What was the reason? In a shop not far away from St. Forge Workshop, Wang Xian looked at the forces who were bringing him chests of materials. His eyes glistered. Hearing that they had come over from St. Forge Workshop, Wang Xian's lips quirked slightly. St. Forge Workshop, today's just the beginning. It won't take long before you guys fall. You'll pay an unbelievable price for what you guys did the other time. And those young men, be patient. Wait for me. Wang Xian swept his gaze across the chests of material while he was filled with fighting spirit. It won't be long. It won't be long. Soon, soon. This world would not be able to contain him. At that time, he would be fearless against immortals and gods. Roaring through Yongchang. Chapter 586. Famous throughout Yongchang 3. On fire, on fire. A small shop in Yongchang City was the focus of all attention. There was an alchemist master and a blacksmith master in the smallest shop within the city center. The master only required 2 sets of materials for refining spiritual equipment. For refining elixir pills, he would give you 4 pills for 3 sets of materials. Moreover, he wouldn't charge any spiritual stones. News of his exceptionally low pricing for refining had spread throughout Yongchang City within 3 days. All the forces and customers were in a frenzy. During this period, when various forces were converting their resources into strength, they swarmed the shop. Master, these are our materials. We would like to ask the master to refine them as soon as possible. We would be truly grateful. At this moment, forces after forces carried boxes of materials into the shop. They were making requests to Wang Xian, while still being a little bewildered by the pricing. Just leave it there. Come back in half a month to collect, Wang Xian said plainly to them. After which, he went to the second floor to continue his refining of elixir pills. Although the master was acting a little nonchalantly, they didn't say another word. Instead, they were respectful and headed for the exit. This master is truly terrifyingly young, an old man exclaimed in shock. Yeah, rumor has it that this master is only 20-something years old. Moreover, there isn't a second person in the small shop. Some bold guesses are saying that this master is unparalleled in refining elixir pills and equipment. Unparalleled in refining elixir pills and equipment. Would there really be such an incredibly talented person in this world? Several people sighed emotionally as they returned to their families. It wasn't just this small shop that became the craze. At the same time, the news of a young alchemist master and blacksmith master that was unparalleled in refining elixir pills and equipment had attracted equal attention. Although many people weren't certain, the news had started circulating within Yongchang City. A 20-plus-year-old young man was both an alchemist master and a blacksmith master. This inevitably made many feel that the world was a little crazy. Together with this batch of materials, I will be able to increase my dragon energy by 60 million points. I'm lacking approximately 10 million more before my level will increase to level 9. Wang Xian's eyes beamed as he looked at the boxes of materials. He smiled faintly and started refining rapidly. While increasing a terrifying amount of dragon energy, he was also forging various kinds of spiritual equipment. Based on his rough estimate, the materials in the shop would allow him to forge more than 1,400 pieces of spiritual equipment, among which there would be 150 pieces of level 11 spiritual equipment. This was an insane number. At this very moment, within St. Forge Workshop a short distance away, Master Xuanhua, Master Qingming, and a group of alchemists and blacksmiths were gathered in a resting room. The atmosphere of the room was extremely heavy. 2 masters sat there solemnly without moving an inch. Master. At this moment, the door to the room was pushed open. An employee wiped away the perspiration on his forehead anxiously. Master, the people from the Zhou family have just brought their materials to that small shop, the employee said with great care. Puff, puff. Master, Xuanhua breathed deeply, and his face was incomparably gloomy. Master Qingming, who was beside him, was equally bitter. He looked at Master Xuanhua and asked, Our St. Forge Workshop has 0 business left. Could it be we are just going to sit here? Not a single business partner was left. Not a single one. For the St. Forge Workshop, this felt a little unbelievable. As the largest equipment refining workshop and elixir refining shop in Yongchang City, they had never expected this to happen. Yet they truly had no business left. It was all because of that small shop, and it had started 3 days ago. Since 3 days ago, their business had experienced a meteoric dive. And now, the St. Forge Workshop had 0 business left. Who's the one behind that small shop? How could he possibly set such a low price for refining elixir pills and spiritual equipment? Who the hell is he? Xuanhua growled, and his voice reverberated across the room. We have not seen him previously either. All we know is that he's an extremely young master. Some say that he is only in his 20s and is unparalleled in refining elixir pills and equipment. That employee stammered while answering. We can't let this continue. Let's go. Let's go take a look at what this shop is trying to do. Master Qingming stood up and spoke with a gloomy expression. During the period where various large forces wanted to refine elixir pills and spiritual equipment, a shop popped up from nowhere. Not only did it now maintain the market price, but it also charged extremely low prices for refining elixir pills and spiritual equipment. This was a huge blow to the entire market and the St. Forge Workshop. Initially, the St. Forge Workshop was still considering whether they should increase their pricing. Now, it would be great if they even had business. No, we shouldn't go there on our own temporarily. Now isn't the right time. A ruthless look flashed in the eyes of Master Xuanhua. He said, That small shop is going against all the Forge Workshop in Yongchang World. Let's contact all the other shops and the forces behind them. I don't believe that the small shop would dare to go against the entire Yongchang. At that time, with our strength, we will slaughter that brat. Master Qingming squinted his eyes upon hearing Master Xuanhua. He replied, All right, we will spare his life for a few more days. He has now encroached upon the interests of all the elixir pill shops and weapon shops in Yongchang City. Unless he is an immortal. Otherwise, he will definitely be dead. The words of the 2 masters sent a chill down the spines of all alchemists and blacksmiths in the room. Yongchang City strongly restricted killing. However, the restriction was on the open front. If you could assassinate someone in the dark without alarming the enforcers, it wouldn't be a problem. However, their faces turned hideous soon after. The appearance of that small shop had broken their rice bowls. As the saying goes, to cut off one's wealth is to kill one's father. He had to die. At this very moment, it wasn't just the St. Forge Workshop. Other elixir pill shops and equipment forge workshops were also thinking hard about a countermeasure. In the end, they came up with a uniform solution to erase that small shop's existence. Wang Xian wasn't aware that his low pricing for refining elixir pills and spiritual equipment had completely encroached upon the interests of some people in the entire Yongchang city. Even if he knew he would be fearless, soon he was going to level up. Puff! Another day had passed. Wang Xian took a deep breath and rubbed his eyes softly. He had been refining elixir pills for 4 days and nights straight and had converted all the spiritual medicine brought by various forces into elixir pills. Name, Wang Xian. Race, 5 elements divine dragon, able to transform into a human. Level, 8, dragon energy, 87, 563, for 21/100, 000,000. Superpower, dominate the marine animals, ability to rule any marine animals that are lower than your own level. Devour any form of marine animals for extraction of dragon energy. 5 elements control. Art of cultivation. Divine dragon transformation. Art of fire refining. Refine all equipment with the origin source flame. Art of water refining. Refine all equipment with the origin source water. Battle techniques. Water clone preliminary. Sword edge preliminary. Instant shift preliminary. Just 10+ million more. Just 10+ million more. After consuming all the elixir pills, Wang Xian took a glance at his attributes and was clearly excited. Oh, right. Mentor, you asked me to return once a week. I should be heading back today to take a look. Chapter 587. Great Waterfall Water Shockwave. Let's see if I can enter into level 3 and 4 of the scriptures depository this time round. I am a lot stronger now than I was a few days ago. Wang Xian moved swiftly on his sword towards Mt. Fingyu. Compared to a few days ago, the dragon energy in Wang Xian had increased to over 80 million points. This was 3 to 4-fold more energy than he had days before. Wang Xian was unsure of how strong his actual strength was right now, but he was confident that he would have easily killed Emperor Qi if he were to fight him again right now. Upon reaching Mt. Fingyu, Wang Xian saw a group of Mt. Fingyu disciples working on their cultivation. As opposed to 5 days ago, he noticed that several new disciples were among the group. Mentor Yu was in the midst of guiding the disciples when Wang Xian arrived. Everyone's attention quickly turned to him. There was a look of bewilderment on the faces of the new disciples as they were wondering who this man was. Wang Xian, you are here. Mentor Yu was delighted to see him and approached him after speaking to the disciples. Mentor Yu. Wang Xian smiled and acknowledged her. Come, take your cultivating resources. Mentor Yu led him towards one of the mountains. Here are 100 spiritual stones from Mt. Fingyu for being in the top 20 disciples in the ranking. You get 500 spiritual stones every month. In addition, there are some elixir pills for you as well. Mentor Yu retrieved a blue bag from one of the rooms and tossed it at Wang Xian. Mentor Yu, I would like to go to level 3 and 4 of the scriptures depository, said Wang Xian to her. Level 3 and 4? Level 3 would be good enough for those from the Dan realm or budding realm. But the arts and battle techniques in level 4 are not something you can manage. Are the spiritual stones sufficient for you? Mentor Yu said to Wang Xian. Yes. Wang Xian said and nodded. Okay, here you go. Train hard. Mentor Yu tossed another token at Wang Xian. There will be a spiritual tea session tomorrow afternoon. Mt. Fingyu is given 10 invitations. Do make yourself available. Spiritual tea session? What is that? Wang Xian asked with slight amazement. At Nt. Lingcha, we have over 10 level 7 spiritual tea trees. Anyone who drinks the tea made by its leaves will greatly benefit his cultivating skills. Don't miss this golden opportunity. Mentor Yu explained to Wang Xian. Over 10 level 7 spiritual tea trees. Wang Xian clicked his tongue slightly and hesitated for a while. All right, mentor you. I will be there promptly tomorrow. He nodded. Okay. Mentor Yu smiled and left. Wang Xian flew to the scripture's depository without any hesitation. Soon, he reached the mountain peak of the depository and darted through the familiar paths inside. After entering level 2, Wang Xian followed the path to level 3. To enter level 3, it would require a large number of spiritual stones, 2,000 to be exact, for a stay of 12 hours. Wang Xian looked at the slot at the side. He reached out for the space ring, retrieved the spiritual stones from it one by one, and placed them into the slot. As he entered into level 3, Wang Xian swept his gaze across the area and noted that the size was much smaller than level 2. Battle techniques imaging jade stones were placed neatly on the shelves. Compared to level 2, there were only 5 such stones in level 3. Wang Xian headed straight ahead. Sword Edge Storm, a middle-class battle technique upgraded from Sword Edge. To master this battle technique, one must first master the Sword Edge battle technique. Sword Jail, a middle-class battle technique upgraded from Sword Imprisonment. To cultivate this battle technique, one must first master the Sword Edge battle technique. Sword Cloud Sea, a middle-class battle technique upgraded from Sword Cloud. To cultivate this battle technique, one must first master the Sword Cloud battle technique. Sword Alps, a middle-class battle technique upgraded from Sword Shield. To cultivate this battle technique, one must first master the Sword Shield battle technique. Hidden Water, a middle-class battle technique upgraded from Water Clone and Hidden Mist. To cultivate this battle technique, one must first master the Water Clone and Hidden Mist battle techniques. Wang Xian studied the battle techniques imaging jade stones enthusiastically and tried to master them one by one. Compared to the primary level battle technique, the middle-class battle technique was obviously far superior in power and tactics. If any expert from the Dan realm can master any middle-class battle technique, they're practically invincible within their ranks. This upgrade in power is even more superior to that which one can get from any spiritual equipment. If any budding realm expert is capable of mastering 2 of these battle techniques, he will be regarded as a fearsome expert. In less than half an hour, Wang Xian had cultivated 5 battle techniques as his own. He was now able to unleash these battle techniques at will. Wang Xian's face beamed with excitement as he looked at the entrance to level 4. Level 4 battle techniques are the high-class battle techniques that can only be used by the immortals. Mastering these techniques will enable the immortals to come up with their own unique superpowers. Wang Xian recalled reading a record about such techniques from a book. He stared at the entrance to level 4 and thought about whether he should proceed further. 10,000 spiritual stones for 12 hours. Okay, let's go and take a look at what's in there. Wang Xian made up his mind and headed towards the entrance to level 4. He could easily afford the 10,000 spiritual stones right now. During the past few days, some of the forces brought him tens of thousands of spiritual stones along with the refining materials just to get into his good books. Wang Xian had kept all of these stones. Upon entering level 4 and slotting the 10,000 spiritual stones, Wang Xian followed the path upwards. This level for merely has 3 rooms. Wang Xian peered into the area of level 4 with astonishment. Unlike the other levels, there were no shelves in level 4, only 3 individual rooms with words engraved on the doors to the rooms. Great Waterfall Water Shockwave. Dangerous Steam Explosive Power. Sword Field. Wang Xian marveled at the 3 rooms before deciding to enter the room of Great Waterfall Water Shockwave. Inside the room, there was only 1 battle technique imaging jade stone in the center of the room with no reference books. The jade stone was about the size of a human head, which was about 7 or 8 times larger than the size of the jade stones in level 2 and 3. Wang Xian noticed there was a cushion facing the front of the room. He immediately walked towards it and sat down. Wham! Just as he was sitting down, a shocking scene unfolded before his eyes. The entire area before him, spanning a radius of 10 kilometers and 5 kilometers in height, was quickly filled up by an oval-shaped seawater field. In the middle of the seawater field was a blurry image of a man standing in it. He moved his arm, and the seawater started to gush out from the inside as though a waterfall of tens of thousands of meters high. The force of the water swiftly swept forward. In an instant, the seawater field looked like what one would witness on Doomsday. However, the scene dissipated slowly, replaced by the blurry image of the man who had started to create the horrid seawater field. Ding! Master the high-class battle technique. Great waterfall water shockwave. Wang Xian felt like he'd been submerged under the water for a very long time before passing out. He regained consciousness after hearing a sound echoing from the system. I did it. I have learned a high-level battle technique that can only be mastered by immortals. Wang Xian's eyes burned with passion, and he recalled how the great waterfall water shockwave was unleashed before him. Even with my strong ability, I can only withstand the strength of the great waterfall water shockwave for 3 minutes. The consumption of my energy is too high. Wang Xian clicked his tongue slightly. In this instance, he felt a repulsive force being emitted inside the room. What? 12 hours flew past just like that. Chapter 588, Serpent Sword. Standing at the entrance to the 4th floor, Wang Xian hesitated a little. Let's practice the other 2 battle techniques when I have the time. It was already the next morning, and he still had to attend a spiritual tea session in the afternoon. Wang Xian wouldn't want to miss the spiritual tea session. Wang Xian didn't have many other hobbies. He wasn't a fan of smoking or drinking alcohol. All he liked was to taste and enjoy great tea. He wouldn't want to miss tea that was made from level 7 spiritual tea leaves. He didn't return to MT Fingyu. Instead, he flew towards Yongchang City directly. At this moment, there was still a huge pile of materials waiting for him to refine. Refining spiritual equipment was relatively more time-consuming as compared to refining elixir pills to Wang Xian. Therefore, he had to refine the materials piling up in his shop as soon as possible. When he reached Yongchang City, dawn had just broken. When Wang Xian arrived at his shop, he was surprised to see a burly young man standing at the entrance. The young man was roughly 2 meters tall and had an exceptionally burly build. He wore a long black robe and looked imposing. Behind him, he carried a huge sword that was roughly 2 meters long. Are you here to refine elixir pills or spiritual equipment? Wang Xian looked at the young man, took out his key, and opened the doors to the shop. You are the master of this shop. Seeing Wang Xian opening the door, he asked this in a solemn and low voice. His voice was ordinary but had a unique dominance. Yeah, get your materials ready. Wang Xian said plainly to the young man, I'm here because I wanted to modify this weapon of mine. The young man stepped into the shop and remarked with a straight face, Modify your weapon? Get your materials ready. Leave the weapon you want to modify behind and write down your requirements for the modification. Wang Xian replied directly, I'd like to stay behind to watch. Moreover, I only have a set of materials. I can pay the rest with spiritual stones. The young man frowned and answered Wang Xian, Come again in half a month. I don't have time now. Wang Xian's eyebrows knitted together upon hearing him before answering plainly, You are going to help me modify today. The young man paid no attention to what Wang Xian had said. Wang Xian raised an eyebrow and looked at that young man. He had bushy eyebrows, thick lips, a burly stature, and a naturally imposing demeanor. Get in the queue, Wang Xian said as he turned and headed to the 2nd floor. Wang. Just as Wang Xian took the first step, A razor-sharp sword edge flashed across and blocked off his route. The blade was close to 1/2 meter long and was emitting a chilling aura. Wang Xian squinted his eyes, turned around, and stared at the young man. "What? You want to fight now? Get it modified today. I won't pay you a single spiritual stone fewer." The young man stared at Wang Xian with his deep and black eyes as he remarked coldly, "What if I say no?" Seeing the attitude displayed by the young man, Wang Xian's expression turned solemn. He flicked his finger towards the sword edge. "Ka-ka!" Sounds of mirrors cracking reverberated, and the blade before Wang Xian collapsed instantly. "Huh, you are pretty strong." The young man was surprised Wang Xian could crush his sword edge with a flick of his finger. He squinted his eyes to observe Wang Xian and said, "I'll compensate you with sufficient spiritual stones. You have to help me modify my sword right now." "Is this the attitude to have when you are asking me for a favor?" Wang Xian looked at the young man with contempt and shouted, "Get out!" The young man was haughty and exceptionally conceited. He was requesting that Wang Xian modify his spiritual sword and yet showed Wang Xian a horrible attitude. Wang Xian wasn't lacking in spiritual stones at this moment. If the young man wasn't polite to him, he could afford to simply ignore him. "Think before you talk. You are going to modify, as I requested. I wouldn't be cheating you on the spiritual stones." When the young man heard Wang Xian, he was still emotionless. It was as though he was incapable of showing emotions. Gradually, he lifted his arm and drew the huge sword. The huge sword didn't have a sharp edge and looked extremely heavy. It was entirely black and seemed capable of absorbing sunlight. On it, streams of black water were flowing. "This is..." Wang Xian stared at the sword and was surprised. Level 12 spiritual equipment. Moreover, the water that was flowing on the surface wasn't ordinary water. Scram! Wang Xian shifted his gaze away, turned around and headed for the stairs once again. "Wang Wang!" At this moment, the young man's arm trembled and a black-colored sword edge shot out from the huge sword towards the stairs where Wang Xian was heading. "You must be eager to die. I'm asking you to get out, and you shall get out now." Ruthlessness beamed in the eyes of Wang Xian. Moving the long sword in his hand, a huge mountain-shaped sword appeared below the black energy blade. Bam! A terrifying explosion reverberated, and immense energy was absorbed by the mountain-shaped sword. "Sword Alps, and you are so skillful in it." The young man's eyes lit up. Waving the huge sword in his arm, shots of sword edge slashed towards Wang Xian like a strong storm. Sword edge storm. Seeing the young man attacking, Wang Xian moved. Mountain-shaped swords hovered around him as he started swinging the phantom sword. Sword edge storm. The same sword edge storm. However, Wang Xian's sword edge storm perfectly deflected the young man's sword edge storm as they continued their attacking paths towards the young man. Great! What a great use of sword edge storm! The young man was burning with passion. He placed the huge edgeless black sword across his body, and one could see the black water energy flowing rapidly on it. Sword Alps. The same Sword Alps. TSK. Wang Xian snorted. He swung his sword in a cross-action as sword-shaped energy struck towards the young man. "Thinking of breaking my defense? A wishful thought." The young man shouted, and the huge sword in his hand started rotating. Bam! 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 The young man's sword edge storm and Wang Xian's sword edge storm hit their opponent at the same time, but were stopped by their sword Alps. Sword jail. However, the sword energy launched by Wang Xian trapped the young man directly. The burly young man lifted his head and was clearly shocked. 3 middle-class battle techniques. I had not expected you to have mastered 3 middle-class battle techniques. However, confidence quickly returned to the young man, shown in his expression. However, your sword jail won't be able to trap me. As he spoke, The huge sword before him glowed brightly. The black rays gradually pushed against the sword jail. "Just get out." Wang Xian waved his arm and revealed a cold smirk. As he spoke, the sword jail enlarged and transformed into a 3 meters by 3 meters water region. The water region shrouded the young man. Wang Xian waved his arm. Boom! The entire water region appeared to have suffered catastrophic attacks. Intense and fierce water columns coalesced and smashed towards the young man. What? At this moment, the emotionless face of the young man finally revealed a different expression. His body flew out of the exit under the strong impact of water energy. Bam! The young man plunged his huge sword heavily into the ground and was completely shocked. So strong! How can this be possible? The young man looked out of sorts while staring blankly at the shop. Chapter 589, Serpent Sword 2. How can this be possible? The young man murmured in a low voice as his body trembled. His eyes surged with a frantic fighting spirit. But subsequently, the fighting spirit in his eyes slowly disappeared. He looked at the huge sword in his hand and headed to the shop once again. How dare you come in again? Wang Xian had just arrived upstairs when he sensed the young man walking in again. He raised his eyebrows. If you ever dare to step in again, you can forget about walking out alive. A cold voice came from upstairs while the young man had a slight change in his expression. Master, refine my weapon. The young man took a deep breath as the space ring in his hand exuded beams of radiance. Bang, bang, bang. One by one, the spiritual stones flew into the room upstairs. The number of spiritual stones was massive. Within a few seconds, hundreds of thousands of spiritual stones went into the room. Wang Xian froze for a moment as he looked at the spiritual stones in his room in shock. Hundreds of thousands of spiritual stones was a significant figure. You want to modify your spiritual equipment. Wang Xian swept his gaze across the spiritual stones as he showed up at the stairs, overlooking the young man. Yes. The young man craned his neck, looking up and staring at Wang Xian. Apologize now and I'll do it for you. Wang Xian corked his lips as he spoke to the young man, monotone. Radiance flickered in the eyes of the young man as he furrowed his brows. I was reckless just now. I would like Master to modify my spiritual equipment, please. This should be the attitude. What were you doing just now? On account of the spiritual stones, come up. Wang Xian scorned the young man. The corner of the young man's lips twitched as he grasped his huge sword more tightly than ever. With some hesitation, he went up. A young budding realm expert. You're on par with Piaoling Xue. I guess you must be one of the supreme talents from the Hong immortal sect. However, one should still learn to be polite at my place. Wang Xian cast an emotionless gaze at the young man as he stored 100,000 spiritual stones in his space ring. The young man came up while Wang Xian remained silent. Seeing him keeping quiet, the young man's hands that grabbed the huge sword tightened. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation, and the arrogant young man felt uneasy about it. But he could not win against Wang Xian, and he needed his help. Master, I would like to modify this sword. The young man took the initiative and spoke to Wang Xian. I can't modify level 12 spiritual equipment. Wang Xian cast a glance at that huge black-colored sword and spoke frankly. You don't have to modify too much of it. I just need something to be embedded on it. As the young man spoke, he put down one of his bags and opened it up before him. I just need to embed this on the sword. As a compelling master, this should be easy. The young man took out pieces of scale-like items. This is... Wang Xian narrowed his eyes as he gazed at the metal that looked like pieces of scales. A palm-sized material with a sharp tip. Serpent scale stones, level 12. There were hundreds of such level 12 metals. Serpent scale stones. Can you embed this on the huge sword? The young man looked at Wang Xian and asked him with a dead fish look. Wang Xian walked over and took out one of the serpent scale stones. Subsequently, he stretched his hands out and took over the huge sword in the young man's hand. Embedding the serpent scale stones on this huge edgeless sword would instantly enhance the power of this sword by a lot. On top of that, circulating the stones with energy could form a serpent. This was the feature of the serpent scale stones. One slash would bring out hundreds of serpents, tearing the enemy apart. Just the thought of it would make one tremble in his boots. Wang Xian took the serpent scale stones and the huge sword as he locked his brows. Given his level in art of water refining, he was unable to reforge it again. To embed them on the sword, there was only one method. Wang Xian looked towards the chest at the side and took out a type of metal from it. Shiyun metal, level 12. Shiyun metal was a unique metal that had a suction ability. This was one of the materials sent by a force for refining some equipment that was similar to chains. Wang Xian took a look at Shiyun metal, then the huge sword and serpent scale stones. Your spiritual stones are not enough. Wang Xian looked at the young man and spoke straightforwardly. Shiyun metal could be used to forge level 12 weapons after Wang Xian upgraded to level 9. Level 12 spiritual equipment cost at least 150,000 spiritual stones per piece. The 100,000 spiritual stones that the young man paid was indeed insufficient. Not enough. Wang Xian's words stunned the young man as he revealed a surprised look. Wang Xian looked at him and said, I need to consume level 12 Shiyun metal. Help me modify it first, and I'll not shortchange you any spiritual stones. The young man locked his brows as he spoke to Wang Xian. Great. Wang Xian nodded as he swung his arm and began his work. Level 12 Shiyun metal, for some reason, could melt at a rapid rate. With a swing, drops of Shiyun metal landed on the huge sword. Subsequently, he embedded the serpent scale stones on top of it. Taking into account the energy conductivity, the stones were not embedded in any random order. Wang Xian had to consider all aspects to make it work. Over hundreds of serpent scale stones were somewhat troublesome, and this slowed down the embedding speed by a lot. Phew! After 4 hours, Wang Xian had finally embedded all the serpent scale stones on the huge sword. At this time, the sword had already undergone a tremendous change. The entire huge and broad sword was already covered by the serpent scale stones with them protruding from the blade. The huge black sword had turned into some horrifying monster sword. Wang Xian held the hilt and circulated his water energy. Roar! A faint roaring sound was heard from it as sea serpents formed by the water energy began to sprout from the serpent scale stones. The entire sword had turned into a terrifying monster in an instant. Great sword! Wang Xian's eyes gleamed while the young man's eyes were burning with passion as his body was shaking. Give it to me. The young man reached out to grab the huge sword. Spiritual stones, said Wang Xian without any emotion as he did not hand it to him directly. I'll send them over tomorrow. The young man was expressionless as he fixed his eyes on that huge sword. Oh, is that so? Wang Xian raised an eyebrow and stored the huge sword in his space ring. Send over the remaining 150,000 spiritual stones tomorrow, and I'll return the sword to you. I'll accept an equivalent amount of Shiyun metal, which I consumed just now too. 150,000 spiritual stones. The young man darkened his expression immediately as soon as he heard Wang Xian. He stared hard at Wang Xian. Yes, 100,000 for workmanship fees, 150,000 for Shiyun metal. Give me Shiyun metal, and I can offset the 150,000 spiritual stones. Wang Xian looked at him and spoke with a smile. The young man was startled as his face turned black. However, he did not say anything. 100,000 spiritual stones was expensive for the workmanship, but it was, after all, level 12 spiritual equipment. This was the primary market price. In addition, there was nothing wrong with providing the level 12 materials that were consumed in the process. Give me the sword first, and I'll definitely give you the spiritual stones or whatever materials, the young man said with a sullen face. Don't even think about it. I'll give you back your sword whenever you have spiritual stones or materials. Otherwise, I'll keep your sword here, Wang Xian said to him plainly. Chapter 590. Gathering of the Supreme Talents. The young man was shocked. He frowned as his eyes were fixed on Wang Xian while he was feeling a little defeated. Piao Lingxue recommend you to me. I wouldn't undercompensate you regardless of whether it was spiritual stones or materials. After a few seconds of silence, the young man looked at Wang Xian and spoke. Piao Lingxue. Wang Xian's lips curved into a smile, and he said, In that case, do you know that I also didn't hand Piao Lingxue her weapons when she did not have sufficient spiritual stones with her? The young man's jaw dropped, and his emotionless face looked a little distracted. Overall, he looked a little weird. This afternoon. I'll bring spiritual stones over this afternoon, the young man said with a heavy expression. I'm not free in the afternoon. I'll be going out in a while. Come back tomorrow. Wang Xian replied plainly to the young man. He looked at the time and realized it was almost noon. I'm closing for the day. I'll be heading out. Wang Xian walked towards the stairs as he spoke. The young man pulled a long face while following Wang Xian, seeing him locking up the shop. His eyes burned with passion and fighting will as he saw the figure disappearing before him. However, a frown appeared on his face gradually. Wang Xian, we are going off now. Soon after arriving at MT Fingyu and getting a short break in his simple room, Wang Xian heard a voice calling him from outside the room. All right, I'm coming. Wang Xian opened his eyes, got up from his bed with a smile, and headed out. Outside the room, Yu Linger, Huayu, and several other disciples were waiting for him. Senior brother Wang Xian. Several disciples greeted him warmly with a smile. Wang Xian nodded his head plainly and said, Let's go. Mentor Yu is going with us too. We have to thank Senior Brother Wang Xian for making it possible for us to participate in today's spiritual tea session. Only the top 10 mountain seats are qualified to join. Several disciples looked at Wang Xian and spoke. Let's go. Mentor Yu arrived and led the group to fly towards where the spiritual tea session was being held on their swords. MT Lingcha was located at the back of Dahong Immortal Sect. There were a dozen-odd jade-green spiritual tea trees growing above the waterfall. Within the stream connected to the waterfall, there were various tea-serving pots made out of wood. Each tea-serving pot was exquisitely crafted. There were 5 seats placed around each tea-serving pot. There were roughly 50 to 60 tea-serving pots across the entire stream. At this moment, many disciples had arrived. Those who could participate in the spiritual tea session were all elite disciples of various mountain sections. Other than young disciples, various mentors and the higher management personnel of Dahong Immortal Sect were also present. The spiritual tea is made from leaves from level 7 spiritual trees. The effects are immense, even if you are only drinking the tea. Remember to cultivate diligently and absorb the essence. Mentor Yu reminded the disciples around her. After finding a good spot, they sat down. Yes, Mentor Yu. The group of disciples nodded their heads. Subsequently, the group of 10 people from MT Fingyu sat around 2 tea-serving pots. The water below them was roughly 2 meters deep. One could even see fishes swimming in the clear water. Having tea in this place was undoubtedly very enjoyable. Around the tea-serving pots were other pieces of tea wares and tea leaves that had been prepared in advance. Wang Xian took a deep sniff, and the aroma of the tea assailed his nostrils. He poured some hot water over the tea leaves and started enjoying his tea slowly. As for the other disciples of MT Fingyu, they threw all the leaves into the pot and gobbled down their tea in a mouthful. Their objectives were different from Wang Xian, as they were after the energy encompassed within. As for Wang Xian, he was simply trying to enjoy the tea. This was indeed made from leaves from a level 7 spiritual tree. This isn't something that can be matched by tea leaves around. Drinking it could even increase my dragon energy. Wang Xian sipped on a bit and revealed a faint smile. Mentor Yu was also silently enjoying her tea. However, Mentor Yu stood up soon after and walked towards the front. Chirp, chirp. The cries of swans could be heard from the sky. The surrounding people were conversing softly, making the place feel a little out of this world. As more and more people arrived, the surroundings got a little noisier. Papa, spiritual tea is for enjoying and not for gobbling down. Hee hee, other than that Dragon King. The rest in MT Fingyu are all piles of trash. At this moment, ridicules resounded from the side. When the disciples from MT Fingyu heard them, they jerked open their eyes and glowered at the group of people before them. The group had roughly 20 people. They were staring at the people from MT Fingyu with contempt. Conceit was written over their faces as they stared down at the disciples of MT Fingyu with a sense of superiority. When the disciples from MT Fingyu saw the words embroidered on their outfits, they were furious but held back their displeasure. The group snorted and headed to the side before sitting down. Those people from MT Lung are truly scornful. They are too overbearing. Several disciples from MT Fingyu grumbled furiously. MT Lung. Wang Xian turned his head around nonchalantly as he looked across. He realized the group were staring at him harshly. She's the girl with the almond-shaped eyes. Following which, the disciples from MT Lung, who were next to the girl, started conversing softly. Wang Xian looked beyond them and indeed saw their mentor, Lin Yan, walking towards the front. Senior Brother Hong Tianda is here? Who would have thought that Senior Brother Hong Tianda would come to this spiritual tea session? At this moment, exclamations broke out from various places. Countless disciples at the spiritual tea session looked ahead curiously. The young man was roughly 40 years old. He had an exceptionally burly stature and wore a straight face. It was as though everyone here owed him money. It was also his strong build and emotionless face that instilled fear in others. Tiani swordsman Hong Tianda. He's the pride of all disciples in the Hong immortal sect. With his huge sword, he could defeat a whole crowd alone. Wang Xian heard a disciple standing by the side exclaiming, "He's my idol. That's what the strongest disciple of the Hong immortal sect should be." A while back, great senior brother Zheng Tianda fought with the strongest disciple from Yongchang immortal sect. In the end, he lost by a move because of his weapon. If he had an equivalent weapon to the strongest disciple from Yongchang immortal sect, the outcome wouldn't have been certain. Only senior sister Piao Lingxue and senior brother Ao Shuwen could possibly be compared with great senior brother. Even senior brother Su Fa is a little inferior to him. Wang Xian heard several other disciples commenting, "It's him." Wang Xian looked at the burly young man. "Isn't he that brat I met earlier today?" Looking at his face, Wang Xian chuckled. He was pulling a long and dark face, although he still owed Wang Xian 150,000 spiritual stones. Wang Xian found this to be a little hilarious. So that's why he knew Piao Lingxue. So he is Hong Tianda, who I have heard so much about, and he's the strongest disciple of the Hong immortal sect. Wang Xian's eyes were fixed on him. When fighting with him a while back, he found this young man to be rather strong. He was even much stronger than Emperor Qi from Diabolism and Ya Wushuang from the Donghua sacred sect. However, when compared to the current Wang Xian, the strongest disciple of the Hong immortal sect wouldn't even pique Wang Xian's interest in battle. Piao Lingxue and the beautiful disciples from MT Shui are here too. Senior sister Piao Lingxue is truly a breathtaking beauty. The strongest and the second strongest disciples of Dahong Immortal Sect are here. Even the fourth-ranked senior brother Su Fa is here. We're just missing senior brother Ao Shuwen now. Chapter 591 Vendetta. With skin that was as fair as snow and a sword that was as cold as frost, Piaoling Xue was the goddess in the current era of the entire Dahong Immortal Sect within Yongchang world. The only one that could be compared with her was a female disciple from Yongchang Immortal Sect. It was not an overstatement to say that Piaoling Xue was the dream girl of all the disciples of Dahong Immortal Sect. Her prestige was on par with the top-ranking disciple, Hong Tianda. Around Piaoling Xue stood the group of MT Xue's female disciples, which consisted of the top 20 disciples like Yao Beibei, Feng Bailing. All of them enjoyed a great reputation in the entire Dahong Immortal Sect. The appearance of Piaoling Xue and the female disciples of MT Xue drew the attention of all men as they observed them with glistening eyes. Wang Xian looked over, revealing a smile on his face as he saw all familiar faces. Senior brother Ao Shuwen is here too. Senior brothers Ao Shuwen, Feng Haoxi, Tong Xiuping, Ming Ziyu, Lin Xingjian are here. They are ranked 3rd, 6th, 9th, 11th, and 14th respectively. These 5 senior brothers were on very good terms with senior brother Ao Shuwen as the lead. They are the ones who had the greatest strength in the entire Dahong Immortal Sect. All geniuses are always together. When will we have the chance to enter their circle? Unless you can make it to the top 20 of the Dahong Immortal Sect disciples, you can forget about entering their circle. At this time, exclamations of surprise kept coming with the arrival of those 5 disciples. The level of attention they got was not any less than Piaoling Xue or Hong Tianda. That was because 5 of them were the young supreme talents of the Dahong Immortal Sect. Her, another familiar face. Wang Xian squinted his eyes as a tinge of coolness flashed in his eyes while he peered at the quintet. The 5 people before him were those 5 young men whom he had met at St. Forge workshop before. Enemies are bound to meet. Wang Xian took the teacup in front of him and took a sip without any expression. Hong Tianda, Piaoling Xue, and the quintet took seats around them. They possessed self-contempt as they looked nowhere, and sat down with cold arrogance. I did not expect her to be a proud goddess. Looking at Piaoling Xue, who appeared almost as a proud swan in the sky, Wang Xian could only give a faint smile. Compared to the Piaoling Xue who he had known previously, the current one was more superior and aloof. The spiritual tea session once again quieted down after the disciples walked in. One by one, they sipped the tea, digested it, and converted it into energy. Pat, Ling Yan, watch your mouth. After about 10 minutes, the sharp sound of the breaking of a tea set was heard along with the voice of Mentor Yu. Everyone was startled as they looked ahead. Why, Chen Mei? I can't even talk about it? Humph. Bam. When everyone craned and looked up, they were shocked to see Mentor Yu and Ling Yan engaging in a fight above their heads. Sigh, not again. Some of them sighed as several elders stood in the air, watching the 2 of them with helpless faces. The grudge between Mentor Yu and Mentor Lung will never be resolved for the rest of their entire lives. How could it be resolved? Back then, Lung Aofing killed Emperor Yu and the top-notch disciples of MT Fingyu with the use of unorthodox combat methods, including level 13 spiritual equipment and an array. Even though Lung Aofing had his limbs hacked off, he was only imprisoned for 10 years because of God Lung. This grudge is not easy to resolve unless one of them is totally defeated. At this time, some of the disciples were whispering. Wang Xian looked over and saw Yu Ling'er standing up in rage. Some of the disciples of MT Fingyu were also glowering at Ling Yan in the sky with furious looks. This was obviously not the first time that the surrounding disciples witnessed the fight between Mentor Yu and Mentor Lung. There were right and wrong back then. Lung Aofing might be a descendant of God Lung, but Emperor Yu was, after all, the unofficial disciple of God In. He also felt guilty towards Emperor Yu. Hence, he would never let Mentor Yu and his daughter come into harm's way. Yes, such a grudge cannot be resolved. Luckily, they stop after each fight. Some of the surrounding disciples continued to exchange conversations in whispers. Wang Xian was listening to the story that some of the disciples were talking about as he looked up to the sky. Both Mentor Yu and Ling Yan were withholding a daunting sense of murderous intent. However, the members of higher management of Dahong Immortal Sect was watching, and thus no one would get killed. Yu Qianmei, don't assume that you have an extraordinary disciple in your mountain sect. Humph. To me, he's just a little worthless brat. Those outstanding disciples that MT Fingyu once had are gone by now. Ling Yan's sarcastic, cold voice came from the sky as she wanted to irritate Mentor Yu. If not for that despicable Lung Aofing, how would MT Fingyu have come to such a state? MT Lung has only insidious villains. Mentor Yu's voice in the sky was filled with killing intent as she confronted her. Humph. It was obvious that MT Fingyu lost to us. Now you smeared our name by saying we're despicable. How shameless. Suddenly, a scornful voice was heard not far away from MT Fingyu's side. You. Upon hearing their words, MT Fingyu's disciples immediately spun around with anger. What is it? Seeing the MT Fingyu disciples turning around to look at them, the disciples of MT Lung revealed sarcastic faces. A bunch of trash from MT Fingyu. If you're not convinced, we can go to the arena and cripple you guys. They glared at them disdainfully. MT Lung was currently the third mountain sect in the ranking of Dahong Immortal Sects. They had over 200 disciples, which was 10 times more than MT Fingyu. A few pieces of trash are not qualified to take part in a spiritual tea session. Any disciples we pull from our mountain sect could easily annihilate the insignificant MT Fingyu. Several MT Lung disciples exuded a surge of domineering aura. The group of MT Fingyu disciples paled instantly, revealing dreadful expressions. Comparing the inborn disciples of MT Fingyu and the lowest level, half-step to Dan realm, of MT Lung, the difference was too huge. It was not a fight within the same league. Senior brother Su Fa, that's the so-called Dragon King. At this time, the almond-shaped eyed girl beside a young man pointed at Wang Xian. Really? Dragon King? Hee, I've long wanted to meet him in person. The young man by the name of Su Fa looked at Wang Xian before he swept his gaze across the MT Fingyu disciples. MT Fingyu? Dragon King? They are just some trash that are not even worthy of carrying the shoes of MT Lung's disciples. Su Fa sneered with a cold smile. Since the mentors from MT Fingyu and MT Lung shared a vendetta, naturally the disciples from the two mountain sects would not be on good terms. But MT Fingyu was too weak to be compared with MT Lung. If not for that Dragon King, MT Fingyu would not have been ranked in the 10th position. Disciples of MT Lung could not be bothered as they totally disregarded the opponent that looked like trash to them.